Works. On the flyer, you would have seen that the Honorable Santia Bradshaw, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Transport and Works, was to be here, but due to unforeseen circumstances, she's unable to attend. So that is why Ramel is here this evening. Yes, and he's also the Member of Parliament for St. Andrew. Yes. And finally, I want to acknowledge the presence of our Member of Parliament, the Honorable Dwight Sutherland, the most important position that he has, and then also as the Minister of Housing, Lands, and Maintenance in this country. So ladies and gentlemen, this evening's meeting for us is very special. And we, the St. George South Branch, have decided that we want to reach out to all of our constituents and address issues that we consider to be pertinent. And in that vein, we have invited all of you out here this evening because we have determined that we will continue to do the best that we can within St. George South. So before I go any further, I want to call Mr. Ronald Lashley to come to the stage and offer a word of prayer, because we need to start our proceedings with God within our presence.
Yes, let's bow our heads. Good evening, everybody. Father, we thank you for giving us the privilege to assemble this evening to discuss matters of national importance. We invoke your presence here this evening. We pray that all that will be said and done here will be done to your honor and glory. Bless those who are coming. Bring them safely. For Christ's sake. Amen.
Thank you very much, Ronald. So ladies and gentlemen, in going across St. George South, and in particular the Ellerton and the surrounding areas, in canvassing and preparing for this meeting, we recognize that there were a lot of persons whom are elderly, and a lot of persons said, you know, we want this to be done for our family members. And we recognize that there are some challenges in Barbados. And that is one of the main reasons why we invited the very first speaker who's going to come and address the podium this evening. The job that he has is, to me, the job of our times, and a job that which will determine the future of Barbados and how this country transitions given the circumstances that we now face. So ladies and gentlemen, not to be too long, I want to invite Mr. George Griffith to this podium. George is the coordinator for the Community Elder Care Program. And when George speaks to you in personal or public conversations, he has one tone. He looks out for people and wants to ensure that people are the main focus and that we are taking care of our elderly. So ladies and gentlemen, I welcome Mr. George Griffith to the podium. Yes, I want to also acknowledge the chairman of the Barbados Labour Party, His Honor, Mr. Reginald Farley, who has just joined us.
Thank you, sir, and it is good to be here to share some thoughts with you about a subject that is very, indeed very important in this 21st century Barbados. And I want to say to you that while I was reviewing the policies and programs for the elderly over the years, and reviewing the Barbados Labour Party manifestos going back to 1944 and the policy statements which came out in 1938, one very important thread was running through every document between 1938 and now. And it has to do with the Labour Party's commitment to the social development of Barbados. And the fact that the party has made it perhaps part of its DNA to address the needs of the poor and the dispossessed and the elderly and vulnerable persons in this community. And this has continued throughout the years. So to speak with you about the elder care program, in fact, I have changed the subject to read Caring for the Elderly in 21st Century Barbados. And I begin by quoting a a document put out by the World Health Organization which states, a society is measured by how it cares for its elderly citizens. And even before that, Mahatma Gandhi said similar things. And I've made a little adjustment to that, as presumptuous as I usually am. And I interpret it to read, a society is measured by the way it treats its elderly and vulnerable population, because you can care, but treating is operationalizing the whole question of the caring. And I want us to make a distinction. During the last estimates debate, in fact, which is still ongoing, it was made clear that 20% of the population of Barbados is 65 years, and 1 in every 5 persons is over 65 years. That is saying to us, as Minister Kurt Humphrey said, Barbados is no longer an aging society, but an age society. And that has significant implications for all of us. And I want this evening to address that, and I hope that at the end we would have an opportunity to hear your questions and give you such answers as you might be in need of. So that community elder care is a significant progression on the emphasis placed on the quality of life of our elderly population. Now, in the early 1980s, and to demonstrate what this Barbados Labour Party has done, in the 1980s, the Home Health Program was established. It is now referred to as the Home Care Program, but it was the Home Health Program in the early 1980s. In those days, the National Assistance Board in that program had departments dealing with housing welfare, assistance in kind, providing waterborne systems for persons who still had the old pit toilets, building ramps for senior citizens, providing electrical services for persons who still had to rely on the old kerosene oil lamp, and appliances for those persons who needed a modern stove, beds, and so on. After 44 years of successfully presenting that program, we have the Community Elder Care Companion Service. And you remember that the throne speech of September 15th, 2020 spoke about this program which was to be introduced, and that it was to be under the aegis of the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. And I want to discuss with you, first of all, the role and function, which is 1 goal and 3 objectives, which would help us to outline the structure of the program. So that the goal is to strengthen the rights, welfare, and dignity of older and vulnerable persons in Barbados through the provision of enhanced social care. So there is in existence social care, but this program is designed to enhance that social care. And the objectives which would make those goals realizable: 1, to provide a comprehensive program of personal support for the elderly and vulnerable persons in their homes. And I repeat that: to provide a comprehensive program of personal support for the elderly and vulnerable persons in their homes. And don't forget, in their homes, we're providing this very personal support. Number 2 is to provide a client-focused approach in support of the independent living of the elderly and other vulnerable persons. So we are concerned with making sure that the elderly persons in this community are able to pursue independent living for as long as is possible with the support we are going to be providing for them in their homes. And lastly, and third, to provide a comprehensive array of social services in support of those services provided by the Home Care Program of the National Assistance Board. So this program is not really to make the Home Care Program obsolete, but it is to address another dimension of the program. So we are complementary to them. And the structure, first of all, is to provide 15 supervisors. Each supervisor will cover 2 constituencies. Yes, that is the challenge, but that's what we have. The service runs from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And of course, a lunch hour is provided in there for the workers. And the persons who qualify for this program, firstly, elderly persons living alone. Number 2, elderly living with family members who are away from home for extended periods of time during the day. I'm talking about people who have to go to work. And thirdly, younger persons who are afflicted with perhaps strokes, amputations, visual impairment, Parkinson's disease, persons who are paralyzed, but they're young, but the point is that we still have to provide a service for them. So that is what the program is all about. And how do you get into the program? Any person in the community, any one of you, a priest, a politician, the public health inspector, the postman, or even the senior citizen themselves can call the National Assistance Board and say, I am interested in this program. And the number to call, 535-1860. That will bring you directly to the admin assistant for this program, 535-1860. And I want to take a little time to outline why is this service necessary. Because sometimes people think that the government initiate programs just for the sake of initiating programs. But there is a tremendous need for this program, and some of you know it. Because you have relatives, you have neighbors, you look in the papers every day, and you know that there are persons who were once capable of managing their own affairs, persons who were once hale and hearty, teachers and policemen and nurses, agricultural laborers, artisans, and with old age, as you would imagine, come certain limitations. So those persons who were once able to manage organizations and various positions in government or in the churches, in the community, are now not able to fend for themselves. And any caring government would deal with that. Now, this program came at a time when the COVID-19 pandemic was coming on stream. And the vision of the Barbados Labour Party was that it was only a matter of time before the pandemic reached Barbados. And therefore, the government established what was supposed to be a 1-year program. It then became a 2-year program, and now it is in its 3rd year, because the government recognized that even outside of COVID, that we have these persons in the community who must be addressed and whose needs must be met. So that we have to provide this service, because sometimes we underestimate the implications of modernization. We all love modernization. We are not going to go back. But the point is, because we live in a very modern, very complex society, people are no longer building homes that would be fit for purpose with respect to the elderly. Persons have to work because there's been expansion in the world of work. And now, compared to the days when I was a youngster, there's a lot more to be done in this society to keep this country running than working on a plantation or working as an artisan. We have information technology. We have the offshore financial institutions. And we have as well international agencies to which Barbados is affiliated, which is saying that there are certain standards that if you want to be seen as a progressive country, therefore you have to get with it. And therefore we have to treat our elderly differently in the same way we have to treat our children, the mentally ill, the differently able, persons who have visual impairment or who cannot hear very well. You have to do that. And therefore, because of modernization and because of all of these things, it has become necessary. Lifestyle as well. There was a time when in any community, people would say, well, Miss Yard down the road is doting. You remember that? But it was dementia. And the point is that there were extended family members, like aunts and uncles, and nieces and nephews and grandchildren, living in that extended family environment, who would decide, well, I'm going to look after Granny. These days, everybody is working because we have a lifestyle which comes with modernization, which is saying that in order to enjoy the things that we want, we have to go out to work. So husband is working, wife is working, children working, grandchildren, if not in the secondary school or in the university, gaining advanced qualifications to meet the requirements of a 21st century Barbados world. And therefore, regretfully, the elderly sometimes are left to themselves. And then we've heard of cultural penetration. When I was a young community development officer, cultural penetration seemed like a foreign concept. And we were talking about cultural penetration, nobody was paying any attention, and now we know. Because Barbadians today are not comparing themselves with St. Vincent or St. Lucia or Dominica. We are comparing ourselves with developed countries in the world, Canada, the United States. And we believe that the same quality of life that they are enjoying, we should enjoy as well. And those are the positive things, but there are some negatives as well, but I'm not going to touch that yet. And then the technological advances. All of that was part and parcel of the modernization. And not to mention social media. Today's life expectancy in Barbados is close to 80 years. And that is because successive governments, and especially the Barbados Labour Party government, has seen to it that there has been the modernization of and the upscaling of health services and education and the provision of those services. Gone are the days when you had the almshouse or the district hospitals. Now we have the polyclinics. And polyclinics are able to provide services that once were only available in the acute care hospitals. You can go to the polyclinic now, you can have your ultrasound, and you can have your hypertension and your diabetes and your arthritis and your heart conditions addressed. So we are living longer, and not only that, the government is providing free medications for persons who are senior citizens and children up to 16. And people wonder, when I served abroad and we had to attend meetings with US aid and those people, and we talk about Barbados, people say, but how can a little country like Barbados provide services that we have not been able to provide? Universal primary and secondary and university education. In some countries, you have to pay for that, and if you don't have it, crap or smoke your pipe. And Barbados is doing that, and I want us to focus on this because we sometimes forget the extent to which we as a people are privileged and fortunate because we have a government that is looking out for us. So that people are living longer, I mentioned. And today's per capita rate of centenarians is among the highest in the world. Only today I opened the papers and there was a gentleman celebrating his 100th birthday. 2 days ago there was a lady, and last week there was another. And that is the evidence that our health care services are working. Because once upon a time, we would hear that so-and-so had sugar, and so-and-so had the pressure, and every pawpaw tree in the district was on the assault because everybody wanted a young pawpaw to boil and drink the water. But the point is that there's modern medicine available. It is costly, but the government is making sure that it's available, and hence the number of seniors we have in this country. So that there are countries that are bigger and richer than Barbados, and they marvel, how can you do it? And we can do it because we have had visionary leadership in this Barbados Labour Party, and we can claim credit for a lot of this. But I must say to you, with respect to caring for the elderly, that we have to be aware that increased longevity is generally accompanied by a number of health challenges. So that we celebrate persons on their 100th birthday. You see all your family gathered around and the whole community. But the point is, we do not bear in mind that because a person is 80 and 90 and 100 years old, that there are certain challenges, health challenges, mobility challenges that accompany them. And that requires care and attention. And the community elder care program has been designed to meet that need. And we've heard a lot about aging in place. All that means is that we are going to ensure that senior citizens are allowed to live in their own homes for as long as possible. And if you had to ask them, they would say, I want to remain in my house under this mango tree or tamarind tree, or where you can hear Mr. Jones's fowl cock crowing when the morning come. And where people can pass and shout them, and they can shout back. That is community life for them. And therefore, this program is designed to ensure that with some support, they can remain in their homes for as long as possible. Not only that, but we encourage independent living. In other words, although we are sending persons in to work with them, we are not going to put them to sit down in a chair and have the person function like a maid in the household. That person is going to encourage them, because we are going to be addressing isolation and loneliness. And you know, if you live alone in a house all by yourself, you can become isolated. You can become lonely. And if you become lonely, you can be depressed. And if you become depressed, the chances are that you are not going to take the medication prescribed for you. You're going to be sad. You're not going to want to eat. You're not going to want to take in your fluids. You might not even want to change your clothes. You might not want to take a bath. And your quality of life is on the way down. It is going south. Our program, I'm happy to say, that after we have assigned somebody to work with a senior, after 2 weeks, a person who was in a corner sitting is up looking out the window to see when the companion is coming to spend time with them. We are social beings, and therefore the human connection is very important. And you're no longer languishing within the four corners of your own house. Somebody is coming in to talk with you, to help you with the preparation of your meals, to help you with your personal hygiene, your grooming, helping you to read, or devotions if you so desire, or to run an errand for you, or to help you with your laundry, help you with a little sweeping, a little mopping, help with the making of your bed, and most of all, to engage you in conversation. That is very important. So that for those persons, this program is a new lease on life. Life has meaning now because you can engage. And I like to say, when all else fail, encourage them to listen to the calling programs and help them to process some of what they're hearing. Because when you are alone, your thoughts can be here, there, and everywhere. You can lose focus and so on. So that for hundreds of seniors and vulnerable persons, this program is working. I wouldn't want to bother you too much with the job description in detail. If you ask me afterwards, I can tell you, because I'm aware that other persons want to speak. But I want to say something to families in Barbados and persons who are registered as the next of kin of these persons. Families must play their part. There's a very important role for families. We encounter sometimes persons who are diabetic. And you know that if you have diabetes, and if you are on insulin, as the case may be, you have to be careful that you know your blood sugar level in the morning. And there are some persons who would get up and dress for work and go on about their business without knowing the blood sugar level or without providing a breakfast for that person. And that person is susceptible to a diabetic episode, which can be tragic. So we want to say to family members, even when you get the community elder care program, continue to do what you've been doing, because this program is assisting you. It is not taking away your functions. So I always write on the application, approve, subject to family members understanding the role and function of this program, and a commitment that they will continue to do for this applicant what they've been doing before, because that is important. And then I want to say to us here this evening that the prevention of the abuse of the elderly is something that we should take to heart. I mean, it is all right when something comes up in the newspapers and we read about it and we go on social media. We read all kinds of comments. But we, the neighbors and the church members, colleagues, we have a duty as well to be part of that. We must be advocates in defense of the rights, the fundamental rights and freedoms of the elderly. Now, the minister said during the estimates that legislation is coming shortly, and that legislation is going to ensure that the elderly in our community, that the elderly is protected. That legislation should also address the whole question of neglect, because we have come across instances where our companions will go to work with that elderly person. Somebody is cashing the check, but there's nothing there to provide for the person. The cereal, the potato, the protein, those things are missing. So how can you assist with the preparation of a meal for an elderly person when the person who is drawing the money is not going to the supermarket and purchasing what their needs are? That's a problem for us. And cleaning materials, simple things like cleaning materials, essential things like Pampers, if Pampers have to be used, or paying the water bill. Only recently, we went to a house where the water was turned off, and you have a lady in her 90s living in that house. You understand what I'm saying to you? We in this country have to be concerned about the role that is ours. Like I like to say when I address the Anglican Church in the Family Life Commission, we heard a story about the Good Samaritan, ain't it? A total stranger. And he got off of his donkey and he went and ministered to him and pulled out whatever cash was needed. But the elderly are not strangers. There are mothers and fathers and uncles and aunts. And they're the people who wipe our noses when we were young and clean our smelly backsides, defended us and protected us when we could not do it for ourselves. And now in the evening of their days, we cannot, in all conscience, refuse to do what we should do for them. So we want to make that appeal. And then there's another form of abuse, that the young people, look, they're people all like me, who would work a lifetime, build a little house, is comfortable in that house, listen to the radio, go to church, and shut up the place like how my old lady used to do at 5:30. If I wanted to go to her beyond 5:30, I had to get on the telephone and call her because she shut in for the night. Their grandchildren and nephews and nieces who would move into that old person's house without any prior knowledge or consent. And next thing you know, television blaring, the stereo blaring, big dogs in the place, children running about keeping enough noise. And what used to be an oasis for that old lady is torment because she has to shift up in a little corner because her house had been taken over. We do not pay attention to these things because we as seniors like our independence. We turn off the lights when we feel like, we go to bed when we feel like, we get up when we feel like, and nobody should change that. And hopefully this legislation would ensure that the fundamental rights and freedoms of such persons are protected. Now, this common estimates, and it's important to know this, is making provision for the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs of $109 million, which is always well spent. And this elder care program is attracting $10.4 million. So the government is playing its part. The government has put in place 420 persons to meet the needs of the 951 elders registered in the program. And I want to say to us, the government cannot do it alone. Let us understand that. Because we sit back and do nothing, and then we criticize the government. But we have a role to play. And I admire the Seroptimus Senior Citizens Village. They have been a trendsetter in Barbados for quite a few years. And I read in the papers today that they're crying out because they need some assistance. The St. Barnabas Center is a model because you can get up in the morning, give your senior breakfast, and take them to St. Barnabas, and you can go off to work. They're going to get a mid-morning snack. They're going to get a lunch. They're going to get a rest period. They're going to get the tea in the afternoon, and you collect them and you're going back home. You don't have to worry about if this elder is going to walk away from home or not. And I think that should be replicated. Bishop Maxwell recently spoke about the government providing land at concessionary rates from the glebe. That is very good, very commendable. But I want the church to go a step further. I'm an officer of the church. I sit on the synod, and I'm the chair of the community of the that part of the Anglican Church that looks after people in the community. All right. So that I would like to see all religious denominations in Barbados play their part. They can all establish their care centers as well. They have the old rectories, they have the old school buildings, and if every religious denomination in Barbados decide that they were going to do it, the Anglicans, the Catholics, the Methodists, the Moravians, the Pentecostals, if they decided, look, our congregation is predominantly people above 30 and some above, and these people, like my old lady, religiously give every month to the church. Wouldn't it be a good thing if the church feel that in the evening of their days that the church was able to do something like that? I'm not saying that you should do it for 100 people or 75 or even 50. But churches can do a 20 here and a 25. There are lots of teachers who are retired and nurses who will be happy to volunteer their time. It only requires some commitment and some effort and a good dose of vision. We need to call upon them to do that. It was the Family Life Commission that slipped my mind just now. I'm chair of the Family Life Commission of the Anglican Diocese. So we have to do as much as we can. And I cannot forget the Masonic lodges, because in the United States, where I'm affiliated, they do that. They have retirement homes. And let me tell you, these organizations are not poor. They can afford to do it. And therefore, we must say that the society must come together and do this. So the point I want us all to get this evening before I take my seat. I still have time? Very good. Caring for our elderly and vulnerable kith and kin is our individual and collective responsibility. Bear in mind, in fact, I like to quote this lady, Anne Carr, in her book, How to Age. And she made the point that, and let me get the reference here for her. She said, each time we see an older person, we need to imagine them as our future selves. You hear that? Each time we see an elderly person, we need to imagine them as our future selves. Let me tell you something. I might get there before you. But it could be 10, 20, 30, or 40 years. Each and every one of us will become elderly. I remember the days when I used to be a menacing fast bowler. You think I can do that now? Well, I could hardly bring this hand over. All the footballers and the cricketers and the people who do all of those gymnastics and other more pleasurable pursuits. Listen, a time will come when you can't do it. The incidence of hypertension and diabetes in this country is real. There are people who are afflicted with diabetes at younger and younger ages in Barbados, even children. And really and truly, if it gets out of control, heaven help you if you have to have an amputation. And you know that brings with it emotional turmoil. I can tell you that, given my background in medical and psychiatric social work. Imagine that you are able to get up any morning, come go and feed the fowls and tie out the goats, milk the goats even. And then you can't do it. You could go and fork up the ground and plant some okra or potatoes or yams as the case. You can't do it anymore. You know what they're going to do to your head? You cannot escape thinking about what you could do, the independence that brought you. And now look, you're here park up. That makes people depressed and carry them to their final resting place sooner than they should. And long before you should really come for them. So the point I'm making is this. Life will not be as it is for all of us. We will become older with each passing day. And it is said that our lifestyle influences what would happen with us. Not necessarily so. There are people who have been very conscious of what they eat. I remember Rollie Miller. You're all too young to remember Rollie Miller, right? He used to play for Spartan. He used to play table tennis for Barbados. Man, you always see him in a tracksuit. This man was as fit as a fiddle, and he died of a heart attack. So sometimes we do the right things and something happened to us. Sometimes we drive in going along and somebody come and run into us, and then we are paralyzed. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that you do not know what will happen to you tomorrow. And therefore it is important for us to bear in mind that those who are now elderly and vulnerable were not always so. And we have a duty to treat them in the same way we treat children, the same provision we make for children in this country. We must make for elderly. The fastest thing people can say, oh, he has dementia. Let me tell you something. You can be diagnosed with dementia. It can be early dementia, or it can be late. But because you are diagnosed with dementia don't mean that you don't experience what they call some areas of aspects of lucidity. That there's some days where you're out of it, and there are other days, man, your head is as clear as a bell, and you can engage people in conversation. So the feeling that because a person is old, you can take away from them the responsibility they had for themselves, you can't do it. And I say to my workers, I do not want you to tell me or write on any paper that a person has dementia. Only the doctor can say that. What you can say is that the person is exhibiting dementia-like behavior. You're in a doctor, so don't play a doctor. So I want to make it clear that we have that kind of responsibility. Now, this is Barbados, right? And we have seen people marching up and down, for all kinds of things. And we know that they hardly will march in defense of the elderly, because there might not be any politics in that for them. But I want you to be very careful. Read. Don't rely on me. Go home tonight and go on your tablet or your desktop and you put in senior citizens, put in dementia, put in caring for the elderly, and you'll be amazed what will come up. Because what will come up with what is happening in the developed world and Barbados, and for those who question the money that government is spending on this program, you know, let them read what is happening internationally. We have a right to enjoy the best that life has to offer. And it does not matter. It does not matter at all what ailment is afflicting you. We have to do that. So that our relatives, our seniors, have made sacrifices for us. Sometimes I wonder how they did it. how a woman could raise 8 children, and she's working on a plantation for less than $100 a week. I remember when my old lady worked for $6 a week. And they raised children who grew up and got an education, were inculcated with very good, wholesome values, who cared for each other, then had a sense of right and wrong. So what is happening with us today? I'm not here to talk about parenting, but I'm saying that we have the first and most important opportunity to instill in our children that set of core values that would help them to understand that you respect your seniors, and that if you see a senior person in the community, you help them wherever you can. That is what we must teach our children to do. And any civilized society will look out for its elderly. I remember going to China with Oina so many years ago. I think it was 1987. And seeing how the Chinese population treated elders. Elders were treated with the utmost respect. And if you were walking on a pavement and an elderly person was coming in the opposite direction, you stood up and let them pass. So we have to get back to the idea that we have to honor our mothers and our fathers because it is the right thing to do. Not because they're going to leave us anything in the will. Because it is the right thing to do. And look, I do not want to say a lot, but I must tell you, I take a very dim view of those who are large enough in houses built by their parents and elderly relatives, while they are relegated to some back room in a nursing home or in the house itself, and abandoning them in the hospital. Now, I said earlier today to someone, I used to be a deputy chair of the QEH, right? And in those days, there were some 22 people. And I've come to realize, based on my own professional work, that not all persons who leave people in the hospital are wicked. Some of them are overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. I mentioned modernization, and that houses nowadays are not built. And if you have an old mother or father or old in-law in particular in your household, and there's early dementia, you have to be careful. And generally there's a genuine fear that a person could turn on the gas and forget that it is on. People can turn on the tap and forget that it is on. People can leave the house and walk someplace into some gully and fall in a well. So there's a genuine fear. But I feel that when people are faced with that kind of situation, there are agencies that you can come to and sit down and say, look, I'm concerned with mom or dad. Can we discuss how I can get some assistance? And right now, like I said when I spoke in the estimates last week, 1 in every 3 applications is a person with dementia. That means that we have to assign longer hours and more days to that person. And it means that the 420 people we have might look like a lot. But when you have to devote a full day to a person, because if you don't, suppose the service is 9 to 5 as it is, but suppose the assignment is from 9 until 12:30 or 1. What happens between 1 and 5 when family members are at work? It is either that family members would have to make the sacrifice of making arrangements for somebody in the family to come. And if that does not happen, we are left in a serious quandary. Are you going to leave that person knowing that as soon as you turn, they're going to walk away? And we do not support the view, like some people have done before, that you can lock a person in a house. I am opposed to that. You're not dealing with an animal or an old cow. You're dealing with a human being. And this program would never agree to locking a person in a house or have the relatives lock them in a house and leave the key under a plant pot or someplace. It is not so. That is abuse. And I want the Barbadian public to come to the understanding that we can and we should do better. Do not expect that the government is going to do it all. We are very quick sometimes to attack the social services, the welfare department, the child care board, NAB, the disabilities unit. And the issue comes back to, what is the community doing? What are the family members doing? What about the people who are cashing the checks and only visiting when the check comes? I want us to bear in mind that when this legislation comes, and I want to make a strong recommendation to all of us here, that when you see people, I could bet you people are going to find something in that legislation to holler for murder about. And when they march against something that you know is positive, mobilize ourselves and go and march in support of it. You don't think so? Yes. So I want us to bear in mind that we must be more conscious of our society and what we have to do to make sure that our society continue to develop. And if it is one thing you can say, that the leader of this Barbados Labour Party, Mayor Motley, is a visionary. She is. And she is leading this party in the right direction. She's leaving no one behind, as the saying goes. She's looking after the children. She has reestablished the university education, the funding for our people. She's looking after the children. She's looking after the elderly. She's looking after the tourism sector, the international financial sector. She is ensuring that this economy continues to grow and is able to finance the services that we rely on. Don't take the services we get for granted. It costs money. And we have to pay the staff. So we have to bear that in mind, that we are fortunate at this time. So now I will conclude, and I will ask us all to spare thought. For those out of whose loins we have come, those people really made sacrifices, and they suffered. And I believe that in the evening of their days, they deserve better. All of us should feel a sense of responsibility for ensuring that this is the case. So when you go to church next Sunday or you see your pastor at the midweek service, say to him or her, I want to know what this church is going to do to support the elderly in our community. We cannot preach the sermons. We cannot be passers-by like the Good Samaritan. We have to climb down from our jackasses or our horses, whichever it is. And we have to look out for the poor and the dispossessed and the disadvantaged, because our day will come. I want to thank you for listening, and if the opportunity presents itself, I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
George, I want to thank you very, very, very much for that presentation. I agree with one thing that you have said. The government cannot do it alone. We need people across our communities to come together and recognize that this is a challenge that affects not some of us, but all of us. As George said, when we look at ourselves in the mirror today, recognize that tomorrow we ourselves will be elderly. And we have to ensure that whatever we do for our parents or our elders within our communities is in a mode which we believe that when we get older, that we would appreciate to be done to us as persons. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbados, as I said, is at a tipping point, and we need to ensure that we take care of those in our society whom have worked and put in their hard sweat and tears and ensure that they've built this nation to where it is today. In that vein, I want to invite to this platform I want to say a young man who has me in trouble a lot of nights now. And I'm going to tell you why. Driving around Barbados at nights has become a challenge because there is so much road work going on in this country that persons have to be diverting all over the place. But, you know, I want to say this to you. There are some in this society who like to get up and talk, yea, nay, and all sort of foolishness. But by the end of this year, when this young man that I will invite to this stage is finished, and the substantive minister in the Ministry of Transport and Works, the Deputy Prime Minister of this country, by the time they are finished, it seems that that accelerated mill and pave program will have done every road in Barbados. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you this, within St. George South, we are going to get our fair share because our MP is going to ensure it happens. So without ado, I want to invite to the podium the Member of Parliament for St. Andrew and the Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Transport and Works, the Honorable Ramel Springer.
Pleasant good evening to all. Greetings from the constituency of St. Andrew. You know, as close as we are, I very seldom get the opportunity to come up here into St. George. So whenever I'm invited, I always come with a broad smile and an open mind as to what I would expect. And every time I came in the past, I really enjoyed that nice, warm St. George hospitality. And today was no different. This evening, I want to talk to you a little bit about my ministry, a ministry that's known for road works, is known for road maintenance. My comrade just mentioned the mill and pave program, which I will get to, but we do a lot more in this country every day than just road works. I just want to, before I get into the road works aspect of it, I just want to share a little bit about the ministry and what we do in the Ministry of Transport and Works. When I came, it was the Ministry of Transport, Works, and Water Resources, and water resources was my specialty. That was the area where I was really, I was growing in that area. I really enjoy dealing with water. I know you have one or two water issues here in St. George, but those are matters now for another MP or another minister to treat to. But I know that we were working hard to ensure that some of those issues as it relates to discolored water and those issues as it relates to water outages were eradicated. But water is no longer part of the ministry, but I still have my heart in it. I still have a sense of some of the efforts that are being made to ensure that these issues that are faced in St. George right now eventually disappear. Because such things sometimes take time. The changing out of infrastructure, the fixing of water infrastructure, just like road infrastructure, takes time. We have pipes that were in the ground from as far back as 1856, when the legislation was brought to Parliament to start our very first water company. 1856, that's well over 100, maybe 130 years ago for those of you who can do quick maths. And some of those pipes that we have right now are just as old. So we are right now at this time going about the country in a strategic way, trying to change out a lot of those old mains that are the source of a lot of this discolored water and the ruptures that result in the low water pressure and the water outages that plague parts of St. George and parts of St. John, St. Philip, and pretty much a good part of the North Barbados. All right, so I just wanted to let you know that even though I'm not there, I still keep an eye on it and work, because I would have left good, hard-working persons in the BWA still working on some of those problems that you guys face here in St. George. So as I said, I want to speak to my ministry and just list the responsibilities of our ministry, the things that we do every day that some perhaps go beyond just the road works that we are associated with. When you hear about NTW, you think of patching potholes, you think about building roads to some extent. You think of things like that, but we do more than that. We are essential. We play an essential role in the infrastructure components, including the bridges. We are very instrumental in stormwater management and drainage. We are responsible for building and electrical standards as well. So the building standards are still part of NTW, as well as traffic control. So issues as it relates to traffic management fall squarely under the ambit of MTW. And just to list them before I go into my presentation, just to list some of the things that we do. There are a good few, but I'm just going to list a handful that I think are germane to what we're discussing today. We engage in sound planning policy, and we give advice and technical services in the areas of transport, roadworks, drainage, mechanical and electrical services. I don't know how many persons know that the what you call them, in order to get a licensed electrician, you still have to control NTW. I was actually the secretary for that board that dealt with electricians. So those are things, even though it may not be seen as though it's associated with NTW, it's still, it's NTW that deals with electricians. In order to act and function as an electrician in this country legally, you must get a license through us at NTW. We also provide a well-regulated, competitive environment for land and transport authorities. Of course, you know we're responsible for the private as well as public transport. That is an issue that we also deal with separately. And we provide safe, technologically driven, and modern, efficient public transportation systems. I'm going to speak to that as my second point. And we promote safety in all work relating to roads, public transport, electrical systems, and management. And why I'm going to speak to the technology, I want to take the time because the team has been set for looking at what has been done for the elderly in this country. I just want to share that the Ministry of Transport and Work has also heard the cries of the elderly in this country, and we have put legislation, amended legislation to ensure that elderly persons in this country are not in any way disadvantaged. Many years ago, or just as recently as last year, persons aged 70, when you reach the age of 70 in this country and you were a licensed driver, you had to go to the doctor and get a medical certificate every single year in order to drive on these roads. Now, I know that wouldn't affect anyone in here because I don't see anyone here near 70. Anywhere near. But it will affect your parents. So I'm speaking to your parents. And you know, and the thing is, today in Barbados, at 70, you're still a 70-year-old man, still a relatively young man. You're telling me that this young man in front of me here is 70 years? I don't believe it. A relatively young man. And we didn't think there was any need for a person relatively young at 70 to have to go to get a certificate from a doctor to tell you what they already know. That they can see, they can drive. You know, these people are products of our health system, a product of our culture, where we still remain relatively young and healthy and fit well into our 70s. That's why we have so many centenarians, because we've been eating well over the years. That has changed somewhat, but still there are still many persons from that generation who were born back in the 40s and 50s who understand the importance of eating properly, who work hard in the fields and build up their resistance, build up their bodies, and now at 70 years old are still fit. They're still, as you said, they're eating grass and cleaning the yard and carrying out the animals and so on and so forth. And they can drive on our streets. And it was this view that it was unsafe for a person who's getting ahead of age, 70 years old, unsafe for persons that to drive. That was, we all, and the evidence does not support that, but there was a view there that was the case. So we were doing this for their own good, people were saying. It wasn't safe for you at 70 to drive because you can't see so well in some cases. I mean, there are people at 70 years old who can see better than me. It's a fact. But you know what we realize? When you check the statistics, when you look at the persons that they're getting into accidents, and crashing on our roads. You don't see the 70-year-olds. How often you hear about a 70-year-old getting in an accident? No, it's a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, the young people who are driving fast, who are speeding, who have vehicles that when the big muffler that when someone pulls up next to them at the lights, they want to show where the vehicle got in. Those are the persons getting into most of the accidents. So we saw this, and we realized that if we're going to be data-driven, if we're going to be driven by what the numbers show, by what the data is showing, what the evidence is showing, then we cannot discriminate against this group of people solely on their age. I'm sure you agree with me when you say that persons like that should not be discriminated against. Because there are benefits to elderly persons driving. And that's why we felt that we should allow those persons not only to have their independence, but to have their dignity. When you are a certain age and your children or your grandchildren believe that they have to start doing things for you, it negatively affects your sense of dignity. It hurts persons who have been doing things all their life. Yes, you understand that at a certain age, they say once a man, twice a child. At a certain age, that you're going to have to become more dependent on your children and your grandchildren. But not necessarily have to be that way at 70. So when we think about their independence and their dignity, all these things came into our thought process when we felt that we had to amend the legislation to ensure that we still allow our people to function, our elderly people. Because when you have to drive, you have to do things, you have to leave home, it keeps your mind sharp. It keeps you mentally sharp. I didn't understand it when I was a young officer until I got older in this work life. I realized that when I couldn't understand how putting a man to sit behind a desk and giving him nothing to do was considered a form of punishment. It never made sense to me as a young worker. I would have loved when I first started to work to come work and sit down my foot up with a newspaper or something behind a desk with nothing to do. I would have loved that until I realized that as you grow older and your mind has to remain engaged. And when that is taken away, that is perhaps one of the worst punishments you can do to someone. Take away their ability to function, to be engaged, to feel a sense of purpose. And that's why I didn't understand that punishment when I was a young worker. But now, as a man sits, a fellow seasoned in work, 30 years into this thing, I understand now why I always have to feel engaged. So my mind will remain fertile, my mind will remain clicking. And that's exactly what happens when we keep our elderly persons functioning. And they have access to driver's license. But having said that, we also understand that age was eventually catch up with them. So what we did, instead of having those persons change apply for that certificate at 70, we increased that age to up to 74. So any person after 74 years old, a person 75 and up to 85, that person can then go every 2 years, not even every 1 year like it was in the past, but every 2 years to see about their health and they check their eyes and have that health certificate brought in to the Barbados Licensing Authority for their renewal of their license. So I just want to put that out there that we too in the Ministry of Transport and Works are doing all that we can to assist with our elderly, to provide our elderly with a sense of dignity and a sense of well-being. I just want to move away from that and look at some of the other things we are doing in terms of bringing new technology into the ministry, bringing new technology to play as it relates to some of the work that we are doing in NTW. Right now, our ministry is still in the process. We've been working on it for a while, but we're still in the process of implementing our electronic vehicle registration system, our EVR system. And this system will allow us in NTW to monitor and to enforce the Road Traffic Act and its regulations. Also, it would ensure that most persons on our roads are registered. Right now, we have approximately 120,000 drivers, 120,000 cars on our road. Give or take a few hundred, maybe more, maybe less, but approximately 120,000 vehicles on our roads. And at least 25% of those vehicles, we believe, still remain unregistered. Now, I don't know if the numbers have changed since we have done our survey, but 25% is around 30,000 or so. So we have a lot of people on our roads, or we have had at some point a lot of people on our roads driving vehicles that are not registered, that are not licensed. And this cannot be safe for any number of reasons. Very often, it's like going to the barber shop, but you hear all over the place, persons get into accidents where someone hits you or crash into your vehicle or even knock you down, put you in hospital, and then we will check, no insurance. And what can you do? Oftentimes, there's very little you can do. There's no suing, there's nothing, they have nothing. So you can't sue them. You have to bear the cost and the pain and the agony of that injury. And it's for reasons like that and many more that we've put measures in place to ensure that we can capture as many persons who are on our roads driving, not only in a reckless manner, but driving in a way without any form of insurance, any form of registration, so that if in the event, unfortunately, that something happens, that persons have recourse. That's why we have to stamp them out. Now, I don't know if you've seen them or if you've noticed the gantries. You've gone across Barbados, you see these large metal structures on the roads. Sometimes you see some have cameras. Most of them will have the cameras by now. Even if you don't recognize them as cameras, you will see these structures built across the road. You'll find one, and there are at least 8. So let me just tell you exactly where they are. So when I call the places, it may jog your memories. In Waterford, St. Michael, if you go through Waterford bottom, you see them in there. You see along the Mighty Grinder Highway, just there, just by the actual monument that was placed there for the Mighty Grinder, you will see one there as well. There's one on BT Hill. We have one down where close to where I live in Bagatelle, 6 Rows, Whole Town, yes, Spikestown, Salters here in St. George, and we have on Highway 7 over by the Garrison. And these were strategically placed because we felt that at those locations, you're going to capture most of the drivers in Barbados. And let me just talk a little bit about the technology that is used to capture persons and how it's done. So the EVR system is a system that involves the use of a radio frequency identification device. All right, so you have what we call a tag that's going to be placed on your vehicle, and that tag is going to be picked up by the cameras on these gantries. So when you pass through, that can already read all your information and tell if you're registered, and if you're not registered, all that information can be captured in a second as you pass under these gantries. And as I said, these areas were identified strategically because most persons, when you buy a car, because we know they're not on every single road in Barbados, they're just those 8 locations, but when you buy a car, you don't buy a car to drive around every back road and every gully and every cat road to get where you want to go. That's not why you buy a car. You buy a car to get to your destination as quickly as possible, and you're going to take the shortest possible route that you can. And those short routes, in many cases, are along one of those highways that these particular gantries are located. These cameras are located. You're not going to waste your gas driving all around Belplain, all down Highway F, Bathsheba down Ermibor Highway to get down to Spikestown to avoid a camera. You're not going to do that. It defeats the purpose of owning a car. So that's why we felt that eventually we're going to get everybody. Whether we're going to get them intentionally, but people will forget. People might duck away for a little while, but they will forget. And they're going to pass and we're going to get them. Yes? We're going to get them eventually. So that is the purpose of these, how we strategically place these things. And this is going to help us in terms of carrying out the mandate of the Road Traffic Act, because A, you're going to increase the revenue, because when we get them, we know it's going to cost them. It's going to cost them. So we're going to bring some money, some taxes. Yes? It's going to assist with the fixing of fines and so on. So there's certain fines that are going to be affixed to driving. There are fines that are affixed to it right now. Driving without registration. We're going to have everything captured digitally, so you're going to be able to see your violation, but you're going to be able to see the camera or the footage of you running the red light, or you driving without your registration. It's going to generate a report. So we have information, that we have data now. Everything we do going forward based on this will be data driven, because this information is going to help us. It's going to help the police as well. It's going to give us a 24-hour eye in the sky, which might be scary to some. I know in some places you talk about Big Brother and so on and so forth, but this is not to monitor your movement, but to monitor persons who are breaking the law. The police, they're otherwise engaged. As you can see, we're gradually moving away from having the police do some of these jobs. You know, nowadays, one time there was an accident, police will have to come. You can't move your car until the police come. When police should be out dealing with more serious matters, they have to be next to the road for hours with you, measuring up and taking information that sometimes is never even put to use. Because oftentimes you go back to the insurance and you fix the person, or your insurance fix the person's car, you fix your own car, and it goes from there. And the police has no real role unless it's a real serious accident where there's probably a fatality or something like that, where the police then sometimes is called in to, and as a witness, which seldom happens. But we've realized that perhaps we need to use the technology. We need to use the technology to assist us in monitoring these accidents and dealing with these issues on the roads, as opposed to having the police or other persons come out there and engage in a time-wasting exercise, which essentially it is. So we're using that technology. We also realize that it's going to have the effect of deterring persons from wanting to risk driving on the road without their proper registration. Yes, you think you can get away from the average person. You can get away from police, but you can't get away from technology. I used to travel to the States, and I would often go, tell you your bags have to be 52 pounds, yeah? 23 kgs, 52 pounds. But you know that when you go to JetBlue, and you go to curbside check-in, sometimes you could talk the guy there at curbside check-in, and he may let you get away with 53 pounds, maybe 54 pounds, sometimes. You know how it goes, you know how the whole thing works. But you go to Canada, you go to the airport, there's no curbside, there's no guy. There's no person that look like you that you say, no, these Caribbean people, man, give me a chance. There's nothing like that. There's a machine that when you put your suitcase in there and it's more than 52 pounds, spits it right back out. Right back out. There's no negotiating. You understand? No debate, no discussion. If it's not 52 or less, it can't go through. Simple. And you understand that now when you get to the airport. Well, I ain't going to the airport with 53 pounds looking to get away with it, because it ain't going to happen. Same thing with this technology. I ain't risking driving on the road with a car that is not insured, because I know I'm going to be caught by that eye in the sky. So it's going to discourage persons from breaking the law in that sense. All right. So it's going to improve compliance with the Road Traffic Act and any regulations, basically. And I think above everything else, that is what we want to see: greater compliance from those persons driving on the roads with our laws. Because failure to do that will result in chaos on our roads, and we already have enough challenges on our roads from certain segment of the driving public, and we wouldn't want that to extend too far into the everyday persons on the road. All right? We don't want the lawlessness to spread. I then leave that where it is, because you all know where we have our biggest challenge with lawlessness on our roads. So that's just one of the ways, the pieces of technology. We have brought new technology into our ministry. That's just one that I think will affect all of us in this room, all of us who are drivers, who have been driven, will understand the benefits and why technology like this is so important in today's Barbados. Now, I don't know how much time I have, but I want to shift now to discuss roads. And I'm going to speak to the broader road works programs that we have in the ministry, and then I'm going to narrow it down to the BLP, which is pretty much the newborn within our ministry as it relates to road work programs. Now, we just caught the tail end of the IDB Global Roads program, and that would have been the Carmichael Road, which I believe is part of this St. George South constituency. That stretch of road, we refer to it as Lot 2 within our ministry, but Carmichael Road to most persons. And that was one of the roads that they would have started back in 2016, but finished just last year. I believe it was, one of the roads, which is Lot 9, the road down by me in BLP, we just finished this year. Just finished last month. But yours, Lot 2, would have finished sometime last year. And you already see the benefits of having that brand crisp road, that road surface. So that's just part of the work that our ministry is doing to ensure that Barbadians have proper roads to drive on, smooth roads. You know, what's amazing is that just a few months ago, all the talk was how bad the roads are, the potholes, it was horrible. And now, it's still an ongoing process, it's still a work in progress, but people are now realizing that apart from not seeing as many potholes as we were seeing before, we're now seeing a lot of roads getting new. And Mike Conrad just alluded to that fact. And I will speak further to it because a guy met me back in January, it was back in December, and he was talking about the roads and how he was going to come here and do something about roads in March. I told him, March? Look straight, in March we won't have more potholes here. At the rate that we're going, you know, not only that we went about and fixed the potholes, but we also give you a lot of new roads that you weren't expecting. So I'm going to deal with that as I deal with the BLP program. But I just want to talk about the other major works that may not necessarily impact St. George and St. George South as thing, but it's still important that you know what's going on in terms of our ministry, because we're doing a lot. We have a lot of balls in the air right now when it comes to road works. One of the major programs, and I'm coming from St. Andrew, I'm always happy to talk about work in the Scotland District. We have our Scotland District Road Rehabilitation Program that is ongoing right now. Unlike in St. George, and probably in St. George to some extent, but in Scotland District, let me just share something with you. We have a very, very short window of opportunity when it comes to road construction. Very, very short. Because when it starts to rain in the end of May and into June, that's it for us. We're just mud down there. We don't have any rock that dries out quick, or you can still go and work on after it rains. When it rains in the Scotland District and it starts to rain, that's it. The place is muddy. There's mud all over. If you're seeing rock, chances are you're not in the Scotland District anymore. I'm serious. You don't see rock. You can dig 10 feet, you dig 40 feet, you dig 50 feet, you dig 100 feet. You're not going to see any rock. So we have that challenge. And what's happening now in the Scotland District that makes our situation there more so critical is that we are seeing now what I refer to as a conspiracy of events impacting on the Scotland District, where everything is pretty much happening at the same time. We have roads and bridges that were built in the late 60s, early 70s. So they're all old. And they're starting to show their age. We have that. So that's one. We have a situation where we're experiencing climate change. Variations in climate. Where we're having more intense rainfall. Now you recall last year, October was hot. It was real hot. I remember October being very, very hot. But then after October, we had rain almost every day right into February. It rained almost every day. It rained every day in November. It rained every single day in December. And it rained almost every single day in January. We've seen rains in December the 17th, the 18th for this year. Let me start with this year. Let me start from, not this year, but this year. Last year and year before. Last year before, December 17th, 18th, I flew back in from Washington. And the bridge in Borders was washed away. Had been washed away the day in front. And December 17th, 18th last year, same day, the bridge in Borders washed away again. Of course, we built it back a little bit stronger after it washed away the first time. So it wasn't entirely destroyed. But it was entirely destroyed the year in front. So all down in December, you're getting these heavy rains. When we really, traditionally, the rains would have stopped around November the 30th. And then December, you get some 1-2 rain around Christmas to Hamburg your Christmas, but not the heavy rain that we were seeing. What Dr. Permis referred to as convection rain. What we call high intensity rain. Heavy rain that mashing up the roads. So all those bad roads that you saw, that we were struggling, we were on the back foot because A, it was raining every day, so we couldn't go out there and work. B, it was raining harder than usual, so it was mashing up the roads. And C, what we use to fix roads cannot be properly applied if it's raining every day. So you can't work in water. Asphalt don't bind well in water. Nor does the cold mix that we were getting. At some point, we can, in December, we couldn't get any hot mix. We had to deal with cold mix. And the waste time putting cold mix, which is basically just some bitumen or some tar mixed with some stone and put into the thing. We couldn't use that because that does not bind well with water. And the water will wash it back out because it was raining it would have rained the next day anyhow. All right? But that's just as I told you, that's just a side. But let me just continue to talk about the conspiracy of events that were impacting Scotland District, that are still impacting Scotland District. So I said it was the age of the roads. It was the heavy rains that I just discussed that mash up not only Scotland, but mash up all over Barbados, roads. And then you have now in Barbados where we're seeing far heavier vehicles being imported in the country. So we have buses that used to weigh, say, 13 tons with a full load. And now with the electric buses, we can see a bus weighing upwards to 18 tons. That's additional 5 tons on the road. And these roads, especially in many of our rural districts, and St. George is still a relatively rural district, were not designed, and certainly roads in Scotland District were not designed for carrying loads of that much. So you have these big trucks, 40 tons, buses, 18 tons. The roads weren't designed for that. The bridges weren't designed for that. Those bridges were built back in the days where you were mostly donkey cart, 1-2 motor cars, and 1-2 trucks. And maybe the sand trucks were heavy. Maybe the trucks were heavy after the load the canes, but for the most part, there weren't that many heavy vehicles traveling on the roads like how we have today. So we have that now, compounding the issue. So we have heavy vehicles, climate change, aged infrastructure. And then the fact that all those things were built on mud. So the bearing capacity of the soil over time was being compromised. And I don't want to put any blame on anything, but then you have certain water getting into the area, because what happens also is domestic water from the area also helps to compromise the soil. So we have more persons in the homes that have waterborne facilities. Now people should have waterborne facilities. I'm not going to knock anyone for that. But obviously back in the 60s there were less waterborne facilities, but now with waterborne facilities in the Scotland District, the water does not percolate down into the aquifers like here in St. George and other parts of Barbados. In Scotland District, our water does not percolate at all. It pools and it runs off into waterways and finds itself into the ocean, into the sea. But it does not go down, it goes into the ground, it stays there, and it causes the ground to become elastic. Yeah? Over time. And that over time helps to destabilize the soil. So there's a challenge that we have in the Scotland District. So that also added to the destabilization of the lands down there. But alas, the government saw it fit to invest large sums of resources, large sums of money into the Scotland District with a loan back in 2020 for, when it first came up, for $230 million to fix the roads in the Scotland District. So right now we're currently working on, we have about 4 roads that are ongoing. We have one that's finished, one that's very close to finish in St. Joseph, one that's finished in St. Andrew. And then we have some that are being done in St. John. No, St. George is not in the Scotland District per se. So you will not necessarily benefit from those. You benefited from others that I will speak to afterwards. But these are some of the other roads that are being done right now across Barbados, because we're working right across the island. So we have about 4 roads. We have about 30 roads right now that are at advanced stage of design. So we are detailed design, and we are just waiting to allocate those roads to some of the contractors, local contractors here. And let me tell you, a lot of them are stretched because there's so many projects going on right now in Barbados. All right? So that's Complan. Also, we also have another important project that we are doing right now is the CAF program. Now that CAF program, and that is a program that is approximately $100 million, 100 million Barbados dollars is used to fund. We got that from CAF. This CAF is the Latin American Development Bank, and we use that money to fund the construction of 17 roads. Now those 17 roads, 2 of those roads are in St. George, and those are the roads Bridge to Cottage and Jordans to Workmans. So those are roads that are being built, one at $793 million, which is Bridge Cut, and the other which is a much shorter road, 189, not 793 million, 793,000, sorry, and Jordans, which is $189,000. And both of these roads were completed. All right, and we're doing some other roads right now on the CAF, just for the record that we're still going ahead with some CAF roads. We're doing Fustic Village in St. Lucie. We're doing Rock Dunder in St. James North. And we're also doing Yorkshire there in Yorkshire and Christchurch in St. Philip West. All right? So as I said, right now we are working right across the board there. We're doing a number of projects. And there's still some roads that are proposed to come on stream very soon. My neighbor in St. Thomas, we're soon going to do, I don't know how many persons take that road, those roads through the back to get down to Highway 1 and to Highway 2A. But those roads like King Garden to Bridgefield in St. Thomas, Kenwood to Prout, those are roads. Also King Garden to Porry Spring. These are all roads in St. Thomas, roads that were bad for many years, and that the minister down there, the member for Parliament down there, Ms. Cynthia Ford, was crying out for many years. The people of St. Thomas were crying out for many years. Those roads are being done shortly, along with Prayer Park, which is also being proposed. All right? Now, let me just come forward now to St. George, because I can see I'm being signaled to bring it home. But just want you to know that we're working right across the country right now. That's as I said. Our biggest problem right now is people complaining about so much work going on. And don't fool yourself, as much as people are happy to get the roads, people want the roads without any inconvenience. They don't want, matter of fact, I can tell you a story. A lady messaged me, she called me, but she sent me a voice note after she didn't hear me, complaining that she now going home and realized that your road blocked because your road getting paved. The road was like a cat road, but she was upset because it's getting paved. She said, no, you can't pave the road. You got to pave the road between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's not even possible. But it just shows that people will, the inconvenience is going to come. All right? So our Mill and Pave program, of which St. George, the parish, and St. George, the constituency, has benefit. In fact, we started our Mill and Pave program in St. George. And we're still wrapping up, and we're still doing work in St. George. We probably finish to Brighton, yeah? Right, so we finished that now. But we started in St. George. Now, this program is special. It needs to be explained. Because persons are seeing roads, and they're seeing roads being done, and they're asking, but why isn't my road being done under the accelerated mill and pave program? It is an accelerated program, meaning that it's a program that we wanted to do quickly. Perhaps in response to many of the complaints, we give you something, we put a program in place where we engage with the private sector, those companies to come in and help us patch the roads. But we felt that we needed to give you more than just patching the potholes. We felt that we needed to give you proper roads. And that's what give rise to this mill and pave program, because this program, it sought to find roads that you can just easily, without having to go in and do any drainage work, any enhanced drainage work, any enhanced, anything for utilities work, you could just go in and mill and pave. Now you hear people on the radio talking all kind of foolishness about but now in October the roads gonna mash up. Nonsense. Because what we've been doing, what we've been seeing is that we go down to the sub-base of the road, which is these just under the surface, scrape off the first 2 to 3 inches of road, and if the sub-base is not strong, and this is not us NTW, we have consultant engineers who will go and assess it to see if it's strong, or if it's good enough to take the hot mix. If it's not strong, then we fix it. We dig it out. In some cases, we found mud pockets, and we had to dig out that mud and put back in mud in there and build back a foundation for the road, because the road sits on the foundation. And if the foundation is weak, the road sinks. We see a lot of sinkholes, we call soft spots in roads. That's because that part of the road, the foundation was weak. And that's what we've been seeing in some roads. So people believe that we're just going to scrape off the road and just put down Barbara Green. Like, that's not the case. When we're avoiding it as much as possible going in, but we don't know what's underneath the road. So when we start to mill off the surface and we find that soft spot, then we put measures in place to ensure that area is fortified, is firm up, and the road that is put on is built on a proper surface. So yes, certain roads would not qualify because they're either prone to burst mains. There's some roads where every so often you see BWA going in and patching part of the main. We can't use roads like that because we don't want to fix a road today and then next month BWA or somebody go back and dig it up. And even if it's a year later, people still fret because I saw that somebody went and dig a hole. Not somebody, it was BWA. Went and dug a hole there on Carmichael Road, and it was all over social media. Yeah, I was on Dunks Man, I went on there and see it. And he was wondering about, well, look at that, this road don't get do here, there. I know I can dig up already. I saw it there in front, a big hole. And we don't want that. You understand? We want that if we do this road, that it will stay free of any kind of having to break up the road again for at least a few years, you know? So those roads that had problems, a history of burst mains, a history of having to going to deal with other utilities, because there are other utilities under the road other than burst mains. We avoided those roads, and we sought out roads that were, you know, relatively easy and had no issues. So that if your road is if you have a road leading passing by you and it's not included, chances are it wasn't included because of the fact that BWA has a schedule at some point to go in and change the main, or there's a possibility that the main might burst again. All right? And we don't want that. So let me just, as I wrap up, look at some of the roads that were done in St. George. All right? As well as some of the other programs. Because I didn't talk about all the programs, I just don't think I have the time. I enjoy myself here a little bit too much, I realize. I don't think I have the time to talk about all the different programs. Because we have a short road program where you would have seen some roads, certainly the Roof King Road, I believe Best Entry is also, if it's not part of it, it's certainly part of St. George. Roads here in St. George that were done under this short road program. Now, short road program is basically a program where we usually milling stuff. Because we're doing all this milling, and we have all this material, what we refer to as millet stuff, which we scrape off your road. And we're using that to then go and fix roads that are not heavily trafficked, but roads that lead to people's homes. So we call that our short road program, where we use that traditional sealing with sand sealing technique to fix these roads. And you see them all over St. George, all over Barbados, really. All right? So those are just another thing. And then we're testing it now, but I want to share it here with you in St. George that we've employed 2 new methods of road construction. One very new and one relatively new. One is RCC, which is roller compacted concrete. Where we use concrete, we're using concrete now to build roads. We've started that as well. And it's supposed to give a stronger road that's perhaps more resilient to climate change, more resilient to heavy increased vehicular loading or heavier traffic on it. All right? And we're also looking at a polymer for those little tenantry roads leading to people's homes. Because one of the things about our short road programs is that we realize that there's some people who still have to come outside with the slippers on, and then when they get into the car or when they get into the bus, switch over to the work shoes, and vice versa. When they get home, they're going to take off their work shoes, put on a pair of slippers that they left at the bus stop, and then walk up to the house. Those kind of type of things that we're trying to eradicate. And we know we see it a lot in rural communities. If we have to scour the entire planet to find cost-effective technologies to address that, that's what we're doing. The short road program was one attempt, and now we have the polymer. This is a polymer resin that we're using that we're going to just spray, apply to the ground, to the dirt, to the gravel, and that will harden the ground to a consistency that is almost like rock. It has the density of rock, sorry. So that's something that we're working on. It's supposed to be quick and easy. We're working on that because we think that people in rural spaces deserve proper roads, proper access to their homes. So, as I said, I just want to wrap up by sharing some of the work that was done just in St. George South alone. Just so you would know, just a recap, we did Carmichael Road first. We did Jordans to Workman's under CAF. That first one was under IDB. Under the NTW paving unit, we did Greens number 1 and number 2. We did Greens Main Road. We did Harmony Cottage, St. George. We did East Lane Hills, St. George. We're doing constant, we just completed constant roundabout to Brighton. We're also doing Salters to Constant, but that's in the north. And Mark Hill, those are in north, but they're still important roads that I think that is important that we put out there, that we have done for the good people of St. George. And with that, I thank you so very much for having me. I really enjoy coming here and talking to you this evening.
Ramel, I want to thank you very, very much. Very informative speech. Persons within St. George that are watching online or those within the room can now spread the word about the amount of work that we have had done in St. George South by the Ministry of Transport and Works. And, you know, I was there sitting down listening and learning a lot about road works and that sort of stuff. So I want to say to you, thank you very, very much. Very informative discussion. And the people of St. George, the constituents of St. George South, are very honored to have you up here this afternoon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to invite the MP for the area, Mr. Dwight Sevlin, to more or less introduce the person that I call the political sharpshooter of the Barbados Labour Party.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Mr. Griffith, thus far, and my good friend Rommel. It's a pleasure to be here. First, let me recognize someone that is dear to me, a young lady sitting up front that I promised her when she went to law school I will journey to Trinidad to spend at least a day or two with her. And here she is, an attorney at law. She's also the National Disabilities Unit Coordinator, Janelle Oldham. Janelle, stand and let them see you. So when we don't only talk about treating with people with disability, we were doing it from the time we were in opposition. And Janelle has been around us for many years as a young lady aspirant, and she has other dreams too that I will share with you here this afternoon. I heard Mr. Springer talking about roads, but my good friend and partner, Reggie Farley, chairman of this party and president of the Senate, can tell you those are no roads because they are minimum roads because of the geographic dispersion of St. George. You can take half an hour to travel from Draxall to Newbury. So think about it. We have a wide landmass, just like St. Philip, south, not north. We are the second largest. So you now have to do some roads, sir, to satisfy the people in St. George. And I will have my say on that shortly. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you a very good friend of mine, a comrade of mine, my senior, and indeed the only political scientist in our group. And I make no apologies when I say this, because I've been following this young man from university days when he was an avid debater with some of his friends who went other places. But he stayed. He went there too, but he's back with us in the best place now. But when I entered public life and became an MP in 2013, we were in opposition. And why I take this opportunity, I don't think you, the people of St. George, know this. And I have to tell you, people of St. George South, many a nights, there were a few who stayed with me in terms of research. Because, Kerry, I had probably the most shadowing to do. I can speak to all the shadowing I had to do in opposition. And that's why we say the opposition, they're not doing what they ought to do. And we won't speak much about that. But I had many a shadowing to do, from health to welfare to energy to public works. And behind me was the maestro teaching me the ropes. And that's where I came from. And I'm happy to tell you, I'm not like him in any way, but the tutoring was indeed beneficial, Kerry, and it continues to be beneficial to the good of this Barbados Labour Party, for the good of this Barbados Labour Party. I want to bring to you a man who have held various portfolios, not now, but on the previous administration for the Labour Party. Foreign Affairs, he's now Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. He was there in the previous administration, Minister of Tourism, Minister of Energy and Business. And like I said, someone who's leading a senior minister among us in his right, with his experience, and who has brought a wealth of knowledge to this cabinet. I want to introduce him this afternoon, my very good friend and political comrade, cabinet comrade. I sit next to him in cabinet as well. We share a lot together. And I bring to you the people of St. George. I could not allow Jermaine to do this. My very good friend and comrade, Kerry Simmons.
Thank you very much, Stephen Sutherland's grandson. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by doing those things which have to be done in order to make sure that we do not, I want to turn this up, but it's not moving. Help me here, somebody. I don't want to break protocol, and I must recognize the chairman of the Barbados Labour Party, Senator Reginald Farley. That's good, that's good, that's good. The chairman of, I dislocated this. I didn't want to. You must have just break off and go along. You can't do a Ralph Thorne. You just can't break off and go along. Comrades and friends, I come here this evening I come here this evening with a certain sense of sobriety and seriousness. And there are two things I want to speak on very briefly. The first is to elaborate a little bit on that which Comrade Springer just spoke to you about. Because let us be very frank. And you touch one, you touch all in this party. And the Deputy Prime Minister and the Honourable Member for St. Andrew who just spoke to you must be defended. They are making an effort to bring fair access to the people of Barbados, irrespective of constituency, equality of opportunity for people to benefit from road improvement in Barbados. And they came under an unnecessary degree of attack during the course of this week. I happened to be as far away as Abu Dhabi. But you know, the internet makes the world a very small place. And I was able to follow some of that which was said. And I want to lend my voice in support of the efforts of the Ministry of Transport and Works this evening. I also, however, want to send a message to you all very frankly. Look, there was one who once sat amongst us. And whose phone is this? Is yours, Robert? Oh, okay. It was going off just now. There was one who, is you? There was one who once sat amongst us. And as most of you have recognized, he has left without a cause. There was one, or he was one, who broke bread with us. And we considered a comrade. And the truth of the matter is that without cause, he now seeks to malign us and to denounce us. I begin by saying that I have no cause to spurn my friend Ralph, but for the general way in which he has treated the party that I belong to. I have no personal cause to spurn him, but I don't like the way he's treated this party. And I want to say to you, comrades and friends, that you have to hold your head high. And you know, the scripture tells you that you're blessed, I believe, George, it is, blessed are ye when men shall revile ye and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. But rejoice, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for so persecuted they the prophets who came before you. So let us not be too put out by him. We have business to deal with. He left us and he said that we were oppressive. But that hockey that we say. And that he functioned in dictatorial circumstances, if you please. And he carries the title Honorable Member for Christchurch, so I presume him to be an honorable man. And if he says so, then I presume that he gonna know what we're talking about. But I believe that we should test the veracity of this persecution and this oppressive circumstances, because it was your member of Parliament, Dwight Sutherland, Stephen grandson, who went, and I went too, went into St. Lawrence Gap. You remember that, Dwight? When Brother Ralph had people in St. Lawrence area expressing concern because a contractor, a private contractor, decided that it would be a good idea to break the road in St. Lawrence, allow the seawater to come through just there below Primo Restaurant. You know, you turn in St. Lawrence Gap, the second restaurant on the right-hand side, you will come to is Primo. And you in between the entrance and thing, you got a big waterway. And you want to break that road, allow the water to come through so it will go into the swamp, and you will be able to put some little small boats in there and so on. They fed that little small boat with a draft of about 3 feet or 4 feet that could, probably a little bigger than a Moses, and that would put some benches in the boat and it would be a little tourist attraction. And people somehow this can't happen down in St. Lawrence Gap, and there was a lot of pushback. How can you remember? Oppression, that's what we were told we represent. We represent oppression and a dictatorship. But Dwight Sutherland went down there and convened a community meeting, had to invite the same said MP to speak, and Dwight explained to the people all that they could want to know about this project, how they got to get different permissions from housing, how housing had not granted any permission up to this point. Settle your nerves, don't get too upset. Folks, the government is with you and in your corner. That was the message sent by this so-called oppressive Labour Party on behalf of this honorable gentleman. So you got to figure this thing out for yourself. I am not making any case against Brother Ralph. But I want people to think for themselves and reason this thing through. Because I know that in Oistins, none other than she who was Prime Minister of Barbados went down there and opened an Oistins Fish Festival and said that the market in Oistins had to be repaired, had to get washed down steel basins, had to be upgraded in the interest of the vending and the fisherfolk community in Oistins. Now, if that is an oppressive dictatorial woman, I believe dictatorship should be made of sterner stuff. But y'all have got to decide. And not only did she fix Oistins as she said she would, she fixed Bridgetown as well. And she fixed Pipestone as well. And when it pays back by me, so I know what I'm talking about, and fix that too. And others. So I don't get it. And in whose interest? Because if you're talking about oppression, who are you oppressing? To make life better for vendors in Barbados? To make life better for the fisherfolk in Barbados? To spend money that the Democratic Labour Party never spent in any of their markets around the island. We've rehabilitated almost all the fish markets in Barbados, almost all, with a view to making sure that the ordinary fishing community of this country is in a position now, not only to work more comfortably, but if you go and research it, and I want the people in the media now to do a little work, go and research it, because your own records will reflect what the current Prime Minister said. She made the case that is the connection between the ordinary people of Barbados, who some see as being at the bottom of this society and the bottom of this economy, and making sure that they too can be exporters of product and earners of foreign exchange in Barbados. And how is that possible? Because the European Union would tell you they would import all the fish that we could produce, but it has to meet certain sanitary, and an interesting word in international trade law, phytosanitary standards. They go and meet the standard. But if you have a wooden table like this here, and the blood soak into it, and there's an open air thing, and the flies and thing when you're cutting it up, and you move from ice to room temperature and put it back on the ice again, then you're going to say, well, that ain't cutting it, you can't export because we can't be sure of the quality. That's what the Europeans would tell you. I mean, Motley's telling you, let us transform all of that to empower the ordinary people in Barbados to be part of the exportation of fish in this country. In Ralph Thorne constituency. And she is condemned for being oppressive and dictatorial. You all would have to decide. I know that in that same constituency, Hockey Donovan, tell me if I lie, is Worthing Beach. That when we came to government was saturated with feces, shut down. I was tourism minister, and we had travel advisories from Germany. We had travel advisories from the United States of America. We had travel advisories from Great Britain. We had travel advisories from Canada. Telling people don't go to Barbados. Be careful of that South Coast. And the constituency of the honorable member. This is an honorable gentleman who must know what he's talking about when he said that he deals with oppression. But the oppressive circumstances, I thought, was when Worthing Beach was shut down. And the people next door to you in St. Lawrence, Hockey, could not use the beach for months and months. And within short time, this government fixed it, opened it back up, And never since then until this day has that issue arose again. But we are told that we're dealing with a dictator and oppressive circumstances. And Labour Party, I feel sometimes that, there are those out there who can play games with your mind. And I want you to look at a set of trees and also see that it could be wood. I want you to look at the totality of the picture. Now, folks, as I said, I came here to speak a little bit about some other things too. And as I reflect on it, it was only in September of last year that I believe the Prime Minister spoke about spending, wait for it, she spoke about spending $600 million to upgrade the South Coast Sewage Plant. $600 million in what is called a debt for nature swap. So it's buy back some of the debt owed Barbados, and you use the money that would be available to upgrade the South Coast Sewage Plant. In the same said constituency. I wish somebody would spend $600 million. Let me be very brutally frank with you. If I could get $600 million spent in St. James Central, I would be the happiest camper. The happiest of campers. Dwight Southern, anybody ever spent $600 million in St. George South? No, let's be real. Reginald Fowler, you represented the Christchurch East. At any time during your illustrious tenure, would anybody ever spend $600 million? I wouldn't understand what happened about here, though. It is a sad and sorry day. And I am not going to accuse anybody of ingratitude. That is for the people to decide. But I feel it is my duty to put squarely before the people of Barbados a clear-cut picture of that which was happening. Dwight Sutherland is the housing minister. Don't warm me up in here now. Dwight was the housing minister, is the housing minister. And Dwight would tell you that there's a project called Home Owners, what's it, HOP, Home Owners Providing Energy, HOPE. And that project will see in my constituency, and I'm very grateful, Dwight, for the 160-somebody houses. It will see in St. John, I think it is in Poole, 200-odd houses. I think in St. Lucie, just north of you, in Fustek, they're going to get 80-somebody, Rommel. But you know that in Christchurch, wait for it, listen to the oppression. Wait for it. Listen to the dictator at work. 2,000 houses being built for people in Christchurch. $2,000. But there's a funny thing, because the rain does fall on the just and on the unjust. Now, my friends, I feel that we have a duty to defend those things that really and truly are, in some cases, in defense, in some cases, worthy of serious attention. I want to speak to them things tonight. Now, you just heard Rommel speaking about some of the work that his ministry has done. And Rommel was very technical, as a young minister must be. And Rommel was very careful to outline some of the roads being done, as he should do when he comes to speak in somebody's constituency. But I've been wrong a little bit longer. And I have seen a lot of this thing called politics. And I don't want us to miss the opportunity to respond to things that need to be responded to. Now, I begin by differentiating this administration from the previous administration. Because I listened to Mr. Cherry the other day, and I want to assure the media, and I want to assure you, as minister responsible, as senior minister responsible for what they call the productive sector. That simply is just a nice way of saying that those things that earn foreign exchange for Barbados, point your finger in Kerry Simmons' direction, because ultimately he got to coordinate all of them there. Whether it is tourism, whether it's agriculture, industry, commerce, and quite frankly, this matter of public works has for too long been seen as a matter only about Barbados. But let us understand that there are at least two major contracting companies in this country that earn foreign exchange by doing road work overseas. At least two, maybe more. So that even public works is sold across borders into neighboring Caribbean islands, and in one case into Latin America, so that that work that they are doing, earning foreign exchange for this country too, part of the productive sector of Barbados. Now let me say to you, ladies and gentlemen, when once, therefore, it becomes relevant, I feel I got a duty to speak to the country. The second thing I feel I have a duty on is to give you the assurance that when I speak to the country, I am not interested in going after any contractor or any business person. But I will call out business people where they are colliding with facts. In other words, making up facts of their own. And secondly, where it is that they are, how best to put it, where they are mamagaying the public and taking you for fools. I want to be very clear on this matter. Let us begin with the suggestion made by Anderson Cherry that this government consolidating wealth. Nothing could be further than the truth from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Well, I campaigned in 2018 against the consolidation of wealth in Barbados. I know what consolidation of wealth looked like then, and I know what I campaigned against. In case we forget, because I think sometimes in the 4 or 5 short years, people have forgotten that they had a motor vehicle repair company just there below the drive-in, and that there were 2 ministers of the government that were driving vehicles that they didn't own, that weren't registered to them. And when you check, the vehicle was associated with the motor vehicle repair company. But the ministries that these ministers presided over were given all or a disproportionately significant amount of work to this one company. I ask yourself, how is this possible? Now, if I, Kerry Simmons, was driving a BMW X5 Jeep that was owned by somebody in the private sector, and the ministry that I have responsibility for is feeding work to that same company, so that all the trucks in my ministry, all the vans in my ministry, all the motor cars in the statutory departments in my ministry are going there to be repaired, then you would have to ask yourself the question as to whether this meets the test of fairness. And if it does not meet the test of fairness, if it is that it is suggestive of excluding certain people from access to government work and giving a disproportionate amount of government work to a small entity or a group of small entities, that is what you call consolidating wealth. I invite you to tell me where you have evidence of that in the Barbados Labour Party government today. That is my invitation to Mr. Cherry. Show me where you have evidence of that in the Barbados Labour Party government today. I come not to pick any fight with him, but I feel a duty to clear the air. All Barbadians know that that gentleman, who is Minister of Housing, presides over an entity called the National Housing Corporation. He would tell you that back in the last administration, the National Housing Corporation had high-rise units being built, and the board of the National Housing Corporation did not approve the building of the high-rise units. They were built under mandate from cabinet ministers. Don't open your eyes wide with shock. That's a fact. And we forget too soon. A project that cost $100 million, and the cabinet determined this is to be built, and the National Housing Corporation Board, but the lady who Brother Thorne would tell you is a dictator. and that, like oppressive circumstances, presided over an inquiry, a parliamentary inquiry under the Public Accounts Committee. And the evidence is there. It's public evidence. Nobody in the NHC board had no control over it. That's being determined by politicians. And if all the work, or the majority of the work, is done by one company, then you can say there's a link between the company and the politician. That doesn't smell good. It don't look good. And if it don't look good and smell good, then it raises the specter of consolidating wealth in the hands of a few or in one, as opposed to a broad-based opportunity for people to tender, go to public tender and let the best prevail. I invite you to tell me where in the government of Barbados, in National Housing Corporation arrangements, housing ministry arrangements, do you see evidence of that? And if you don't see evidence of it, then, Brother Cherry, don't spout effluent at the public of Barbados. And if you don't understand, then come and sit down in a Labour Party meeting and be educated about it. No, everybody heard Rommel just now. It is 100% true to say that during the course of last year, especially the last 6 months of last year, the people of Barbados complained ad nauseum, ad infinitum about the roads in this country. And to their credit, the Ministry of Public Works announced the program in December of last year. It didn't make any sense announcing the program in the middle of the rainy season, because you just heard Rommel explain to you why. You ain't gonna get much done. So at December, the program is announced. January, the program began. A target of doing 40 to 45 kilometers of road for $30 million. But we all know that the road network of Barbados is 2,500 kilometers. And we all know that a measly 40 kilometers cannot satisfy this country. Dwight Sutherland just benefited from a speech that illuminated the fact that he has gotten 6 or 7 roads done in his constituency. And he said that there ain't enough work now gonna start. But this gentleman who now speaking to you has had 0 roads done under the program in his constituency. So what do you think I would say about the work that gonna start? And I am not alone. But that is not to put down Rommel and them. That is to say to you, as it should say to Brother Cherry, that there's a lot more work to do. There's a lot more to do. Now, if his complaint is therefore that he is not included, let us have that discussion. Now, I want to say that there are a few things that he get wrong. And there's a duty not only to help him, to help himself, but there's a duty to help avoid misguiding the public of Barbados. The first thing is that he come talking about mobilization money. Should have a mobilization fee. Now, believe you me when I say to you that it is a new concept in construction of that type, because I do not know of any roads in Barbados that have begun by mobilizing the contractor. It is not to say it is impossible, but I don't know of any historically. But if his argument is, as I would want to think his argument should be, that there should be mobilization money put up by the government, then let me tell you, star, pause. Don't only talk out of one side of your mouth. Let us have the proper conversation about the total picture. Because if it is that you want to have mobilization money, then also talk to me about the need for there to be an advance payment bond or an advance payment guarantee, so that there will be no opportunity for a contractor to get money from the government and then walk away and then do the work and government left holding the bag. This is about public finance. This is about standing up to scrutiny. This government, that the same gentleman who has left us without cause will condemn us for wasting money, cannot be seen or heard or associated with practices of financial lawlessness and recklessness. So that there ain't nobody in the Barbados Labour Party cabinet who is prepared to say, pick up $2 million and hand to a contractor, I don't care who the contractor is, or $1 million and hand to a contractor, without saying, look, there got to be some security for this money. And if you can get some mobilization money up front, let us put a payment bond of a percentage of that money so that we make sure that we got something, some element of something to hold on to in case you don't live up to expectations. That is not to pick a fight with Brother Cherry. That's just to tell him what we know from political experience of what must be good governance in Barbados going forward, Star. And there is a history to this. Reginald Farley was a minister in Barbados Labour Party 15 odd years ago. And Reggie, is it not your experience? Rural Development Corporation, Urban Development Corporation. You give a contractor a job and you mobilize him. He got a bill of bathroom for $10,000. Hey, 3 months later, with the bathroom in bill. But Skipper, where the bathroom is, what happened? My minister, to tell you the truth, I had some things there that I did do, and I had to pay off this body coin they owed them. And so I plan to get back to it, but I used that little cash I had to settle off them debts, and I can come back to you. We've heard this several times. In my constituency, I could carry you into a place in my, Dwight Sutherland know it good because I am me, and he come to high words. We're a gentleman who used to be my friend. He stopped being my friend now because the house ain't fixed. But the reality is that contractor mobilize. It didn't say they didn't get the money. But I had so much things there that I didn't do, and the government take long to pay me, and so I had to put that money to something else. But I can come back to it, Minister. I can get there. And if that day doesn't come, that it get there, how does the government face the Auditor General and say that we pick up $2 million or $1 million or how much ever Brother Cherry divines that we should just give away? So it can't work so. It is not that it is impossible to craft out, and my feeling, and let it be very clear, this minister's feeling is that we must carve out a space for small contractors in Barbados to benefit from the opportunity, and that you start and you grow, and that you come to a point where you can in fact participate in the major highways, and that you come to a point where you can expand yourself into the Caribbean and be selling your services there too. But you've got to do this in a way that makes sense. Now, I also want to say that while I am not going to be supportive of anybody fleecing the government, I am going to say to you that there are some issues that we got to talk about frankly. Experience is an important thing in every aspect of life. Experience of government with contractors, we just heard before, especially in those cases where money has been advanced without the proper security. Experience in placing and supplying and manufacturing asphalt is another matter. It is all well and good to say that anybody could go and purchase bitumen. I could purchase bitumen tomorrow. Do I have the experience in dealing with the bitumen and the aggregate that I have purchased? The mixing of the asphalt is a specialist process. Do I have the requisite experience? Does government just hand out an award a contract against a background of zero experience? And if that is the concern that Brother Cherry has, let's have that conversation. I have no difficulty with the conversation. Dwight Sutherland would tell you that he was Minister of Small Business in Barbados. He began work on an entity which is known as the Barbados Artisans and Contractors Cooperative Society Limited. When I became Minister of Business, I succeeded Dwight. All of the foundation work for the artisans, contractors, cooperative was in place. I just had to take it over the line, see it through to fulfillment, which I did. But you know, in all the conversation I'm hearing, I ain't hear that them are the people to be involved. There's a co-op for artisans and contractors in Barbados. Surely that cooperative should be the natural entity that works with government to build out the capacity for these Barbadians to be able to participate in road work. But I am hearing instead about another entity, an association which is very much controlled and very strongly influenced, if not controlled, by Brother Cherry. And it can't be about that. It can't be about that. And saying that he ain't got no right to sit at the table too. But why would you want to bypass the artisans cooperative, the contractors cooperative, for something that you have a very strong interest in and influence over? And I ask these questions because I feel that we must have transparency. Everybody wants transparency in government, and they deserve to have it. But we must have transparency in the private sector as well. Let's have that conversation. And it is not true in that vein to say that contractors are being discriminated against, and he in particular, because of the color of their skin. You see, these are the fouls. If they're talking football, that's a foul in the penalty area, in the goal mouth. That's a foul. Because how do you say that you are being denied opportunity when only yesterday your equipment was down in Graham Hall Swamp doing work for the Barbados Water Authority? You had responsibility in part for the Barbados Water Authority, Brother Springer. Comrade Springer would tell you all the sewage lines and so on, when they're clearing them, is Brother Cherry at the table? He is very much at the table. So how can you be doing work for the Barbados Water Authority, but you are still black, but say you don't get work from the government because you are black? When I leave the airport and I come down to town, I pass along Newton, next to a company, what is the company name, no? Gildan. And there's a massive thing that has just been built out. There is the first vendors mall, the beginning for coconut vendors in Barbados. Take them off the highway so they will be safe and put them properly off the road. You know who compact that? Who do all the marfill excavation and compacting work? The same body who would have you believe that he is too black to get work from the government of Barbados, but get all that work from the BIDC. I tell you, there has to be fairness in the discussion. I ain't come to pick no fight with anybody in the private sector, but I've come to ask people, do not urinate in the faces of the Barbadian public and tell them that is lemonade. There's a duty to be fair. Now, there's some hurdles that small companies have to overcome. And I come to you all to be very real about this discussion. As government, we have to help small companies overcome some hurdles. It means calling in the top people in every business and working with them. We do this well in the micro business sector through the Barbados Trust Fund Limited. Dwight Sutherland was the first minister. Prime Minister Mia Motley, the great oppressor, she created the Barbados Trust Fund Limited, and he was its first minister. But the woman is an oppressive woman. So that they so help small and micro business people start up the business, and then you hold the hand and navigate them through all the pitfalls of starting a business. Not true, Dwight? Yeah. I feel if Ralph used to pay attention to what was happening in government, he wouldn't have embarrassed himself this way, you know. But that's another thing. But in the same way that that is done at that small level, we must do it now at larger levels. Because when you go to do this type of work, Romel's ministry is going to publish an advertisement, but they're going to go through a pre-qualification exercise. So in other words, before you can qualify, you got to get over a certain bar, pre-qualification. You must produce the team that you're working with. Because no one man don't go and build roads. No one man ain't going to do mill and paving on the highway. It's team. So what is the CV of this team? What's the team experience, the team members' experience? Let's talk also about how the money going to be managed, because we're talking about multiple millions of dollars. So therefore, where are the audited financial statements of this company? So this is not a fly-by-night thing that we're dealing with. You got to show that you're also a company in good standing. So your tax clearance, your national insurance, your corporation tax got to pay, insurance on the vehicles. A vitally important thing in my constituency in Arch Hall, Brother Cherry. I want Brother Cherry to know that I am aware that in my constituency in Arch Hall, there was a contractor that had a vehicle with some large objects on the vehicle. And the things roll off because the truck stopped suddenly. And they roll off and damage another contractor's vehicle. And you know, the body who owned the vehicle at fault could not tell you if their insurance was CG. First of all, he says CG. Then he says CGI. And here to show it was nobody. It was nobody. I want Brother Cherry to know that I am aware of that. I want him to know I know about that. So these are the things that we have to treat if we're going to develop the construction sector. And we got to work with people. Now, if the conversation is how best can government do that, I am at the table. Because this is what we must do to carve out the space to participate. But comrades and friends, that is about building capacity. But I also go back to saying you don't start on the big highway. I want Brother Cherry to tell Brother Springer here which road he has mill and pave in Barbados. Experientially. I don't know of any tenantry road that he has done. Maybe he has. I don't know. I certainly know of no road larger than a tenantry road that he has done. Now, a baby usually creeps before it walks. And we tend to walk before we run. So you don't start by putting an infant to do a 100-meter sprint. You usually put the infant on the ground and let it creep out a little bit. And so too must it be with developing business. Let people function within capacity. Government has a duty to facilitate that functioning. And that is what I want to say tonight. I ain't come to pick a fight, but I come to say that we have a duty as a government to hear what was said, but equally, we got to set the record straight as we go forward so that there can be no misappreciation. I want to end by saying a couple things to you very quickly about another matter in the private sector that has been in the public domain for the last couple of weeks and about which we cannot as a party remain silent. And it touches this matter again, the private sector's view about the concessions which are granted in the hospitality sector. You will recall that the government had to go to Parliament 2 weeks ago and introduce a change of legislation for what? Believe it or not, in 2024, we said concessions that the hoteliers are getting have now to be tied to the requirement of their maintaining certain industrial standards. But we should not have to fight that battle in 2024. Sir Frank Walcott fought that battle in 1940. Grantley Adams fought that battle. We thought that these matters had been laid to rest. Now, I can tell you why we're fighting the battle. But our friend, who was once with us, has distinguished himself as being the only leader of the opposition in the Commonwealth to begin the journey as leader of the opposition by voting against and taking a stand against Labour. The only other time it happened in the Commonwealth was when a woman named Margaret Thatcher did it. So that there are two Maggies. Margaret Thatcher and Margaret Thorne. Begin by saying, I want nothing to do with the support of the working class people. Now, if I was in the Democratic Labour Party and I was one of them that rushed to embrace him, I would be feeling very ashamed of myself. But I know why they did it. They did it in the hope that he would be the gift to them of the parliamentary, what was it? What do they call it? Subvention, parliamentary subvention. Not having read the law, I don't think that they were aware that to get the subvention, strictly speaking, the person who was in parliament should have run with the Democratic Labour Party in the last election and remained with that party right up to then. So they have invited to themselves a measure of confusion. Their story is made even more painful because of the fact that, quite frankly, in the Democratic Labour Party now, you have a former member of the Barbados Labour Party who did not do much to distinguish himself. He could not even win a nomination, and that is Yearwood. And you have Maggie. And so the Democratic Labour Party of today is led by two people who, by our standards in the Barbados Labour Party, can only be described as mediocre. But none of them really none of them would have met the first 11, 92. But they both are vying for leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. It says more. This really paints a picture of what is happening in George Street than anything else, you know. This is what it's about. This really tells us the torture of what is happening in George Street. But I don't want to digress. I want to say to you that when Thorny was in the parliament, the man said that the concessions granted are legal rights. These are rights, Mr. Speaker. You remember? These are rights. Now I turned to Dale Marshall. I said, but Dale, what manner of ignorance is he spouting? I couldn't believe this. And Dale told me he felt shame for him and that he was not going to engage him. But you know, Dale the fella quick to say Kadir. But folks, I then see it repeated in the media, and that was my fear, that a nascent and unsuspecting media, without doing that which media in many other parts of the world would do, which is called research. You heard Dwight Sutherland tell you just now, I like to do research. I encourage them to research. But the people in the media don't like to do too much research, unless there's an opportunity to pull down a politician. Then they will go back 50 years if they could. So, what happened now? If you go, I can help them. I can help them to do for themselves that which they did not do voluntarily. If they went to the Small Business Development Act of Barbados, Chapter 318C of the laws of Barbados, you will see that the Small Business Minister, Dwight Sutherland was once Small Business Minister. He was there before me. I just told you so. Small Business Minister has the power to approve status as a small business in this country. But he also, once you get that status, you're entitled to certain concessions. You can bring in certain things free of duty, etc. Same principle. But the minister reserves the right to revoke the status. But my boy in Parliament parading about rights, and he ain't read the legislation. He didn't know. And so the minister has the right at Section 13, if you provided false information, in other words, you got your duty-free status by fraudulent means, the minister can revoke. If it is that you failed to pay NIS, the minister can revoke. If it is that you have not submitted income tax returns, the minister can revoke. So that this is nothing new, a concession is not an absolute right. And if you feel that that is just one example, the Tourism Development Act is another. In the Tourism Development Act, you have the power to give a permit to the operator of a hotel or the operator of any tourism project the right to bring in building materials without paying duty. But if that person, again, issued false statements, if that person abuses the permit, in other words, you bring in the materials, but here they show you using the materials from you're using it for the project that you're talking about. Or if that person violates the conditions stipulated in the permit, the minister has the right to revoke the status so that the concessions granted under that act and to help the media, that is chapter 341 of the laws of Barbados, for my friends in the back, at section 14 thereof. So you can go and research it for yourself. So that what we heard, the baloney that we were being fed, and that was puppeted, and that was repeated, almost as though the media in Barbados ceases to see itself as a discerning body of intellectuals, which they are, but become a simple repeater station, which it is not. And I believe that if we are going to be faithful to ourselves in this time, comrades, when we have a duty to inform our publics and to educate our publics and to guide our publics and to encourage critical thought and analysis, I don't want anybody in this room or anybody out there to just buy into what I say. I want you to analyze what I say and judge if it makes sense to you. And if we fail to encourage that now in an age of artificial intelligence, where a robot, some machine, I don't know if you saw Brother Cherry's advertisement about his business. You have this steel voice type sounding thing talking about the business that he has, and he's using aerial drone technology. He's well financed. I don't know that somebody that had aerial drone technology and an AI thing really need a mobilization, but that's a different matter. But the driver, there's a message passed to me where the driver of there's 6 or 5? 6, 7, 8. Attend to your car in the car park immediately. Driver 6, 7, 8. Driver G 6, 7, 8, sorry. Yeah, so I'm saying to you that this is really where we need to go to advance the interests of this society. Hopefully, if we do that, then what we see on social media posts will be thoughtful comment. What we see on social media posts will be informed comment, rather than just a knee-jerk reaction about what you can make sport at. Because a country that has benefited so substantially from free education must deliver more and must be able to be encouraged to deliver more and better. And I say to you, therefore, that in my judgment, Brother Ralph did a cruel thing, inflicted a cruel punishment on this country when he got in the parliament and tried to pass off as a right that which in multiple pieces of legislation with respect to concessions in Barbados is clearly a power granted by a minister capable of being revoked by the minister if you don't meet certain standards. What are the standards we are asking the hoteliers to meet? We are asking the hoteliers to stand up and recognize that when a waiter or waitress go to work and there's an agreement to get them a uniform, don't make them wait a year to get a new uniform. Good Christ. It is a uniform. And this is what you're battling with some hotels about. You're battling with some hotels that they got people standing, as I now am, at the front desk counter where people coming to get check-in. And you go to work at 8 in the morning and you leave at 5 in the afternoon and there is no stool, no chair for you to sit down on for the whole day. And the union, as the union must say, well, this can't be good enough. But must the union shut down all of Barbados over that? Or is there a duty on the part of those people in hospitality to treat Barbadians with dignity? We're talking about access to a meal allowance. That was at $8 a day for the last 30 or 40 years. But we're in Barbados, you could buy lunch for $8. And why should we in 2024 have to have a noise with any employer's organization over a meal allowance? And the union tell you it should be $20. They say they ain't going past 12. But good Christ, you negotiate that. But ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, they wanted to trigger an industrial dispute over $12. Not the union. Not the union. The hoteliers. And this is not all the hoteliers. This is a few who have come into Barbados and they've brought with them a concept of industrial practice which we cannot tolerate. And the day that your government, elected by you in such overwhelming numbers, all 30 seats, not once but twice, bows and succumbs to that type of treatment of you, the poor black people in Barbados, that is the day that you should be showing us the door and ushering us out of office. That's what we're standing in the breach for. We are standing in the breach in the same way that there were those in corporate Barbados who said that to increase the minimum wage by $2 was too much money. We're standing in the breach because in St. George, up until this government and this government's Minister of Agriculture, there were daughters and mothers of St. George who were working in fields and could not have a bathroom facility. That's what we're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I was Minister of Tourism and I went to Grantley Adams International Airport and had to demand a board of directors that they allow for security guards on that entire 2-mile stretch of highway going down all the different gates that you have, that you put in bathroom facilities so that ladies don't have to suffer the indignity of having to call up to the main office to ask somebody to, so a man said, come down with a car to carry me up to the bathroom because I am seeing my monthlies. That's what's happening in this country. And that is where I stand in the breach. And that is where all the ignorant talk you are hearing about oppression, that is where Mayor Motley stands in the breach. God bless her for her stewardship of this country. And you've never heard the specifics. You've never heard these things being talked about by the Democratic Labour Party. But it was happening then. We came and found these things. So I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, that there's a need for us to be very clear. And I go back to that which I said before with respect to the gentleman in waste hauling. You know, be very clear and be very transparent with the public. I saw him on Marcia Wheat's program. I don't watch that filth, quite frankly, but from time to time people point it might send me a thing, Minister, you should see this here. And you're on the program and she, oh my goodness, look at the work you're doing in Dominica. Oh, and you can't get work in Barbados. Oh my goodness. And he did go to Dominica, but what he purported to have done in Dominica is at variance with what I know took place. Now, the airport was worked on, and there was excavation done. I believe it was done by him. There was marl fill being done. I believe it was done by him. But the asphalting of the airport in Dominica was done by a company called Jacques Gabard from Martinique. And Guadeloupe. They were the people who were in charge of the asphalt work. And so therefore, don't come and say, oh, I was associated with asphalt work on the airport, and make it seem as though the government of Barbados is the worst possible entity in the world because they won't let you do mill and paving. I invite the gentleman to show me the tenantry road that he mill and pave here. I want us to be fair. We are not entitled to our own facts. And this is the message that I send to you, Labour Party, because you need to be eternally vigilant. That is what George Street has descended into today, and that is all they're going to be about between now and whenever next an election is called in Barbados. They again all do is call tomorrow. To the best of my knowledge, we had an election only 2 years ago. But the reality is that nobody out there is interested in truth. Nobody out there is interested in factual bases. Nobody out there is interested in analysis. They're interested in creating impressions. Creating impressions. What the Trinidadians will call mamagai. No substance, but the appearance of substance. No beer, only froth. Once we get it clear in our heads that all of us must do the analysis and all of us must study these things. And that's why, Dwight, you came to my branch, I have come to yours. Rommel, Dwight, and I will come to yours and others, because we in this Parliament must make sure we hold the branch meetings to speak to the people so the people can understand and be in a position to be empowered to respond, so that your next door neighbor, if they didn't hear, can know. The body who's sitting down next to you on the bus, if they didn't hear, can know. They must know. Because that is the only way in an age where mischief is afoot that we will be able to adequately defend ourselves and prepare you for the building out of the Barbados of the future. And there's only one party in this country that is talking about building out a Barbados for the future. And that is the party who you are here to hear this evening and whom you support. And I hope you will continue to support because you've got one of the best most hardworking MPs. He was given an overwhelming challenge of building 10,000 houses within the space of 5 years. I must tell you, on my most recent assessment, he is at approximately the 2,000 mark and going strong. So give him your continued support. He is working hard. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not detain you any further. It has been a pleasure to be here with you in St. George South. May you have a wonderful night. God bless you all.
I must say, shots, and more shots, man. Kerry was absolutely correct. It is only the Barbados Labour Party that is speaking about building out the future for Barbadians. It is only the Barbados Labour Party that is talking about building out Barbados. We came to office to do a job. We are doing the job. We will not be distracted by anybody. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Kerry publicly for coming and delivering that address to this branch this evening. While we are here, there's a gentleman in the crowd sitting down that is well known to many of us across this country. A man who between 2015 and 2018 brought light to an issue which distorted all of us because we could not believe that we lived in a country where we would literally have to walk in what Kerry called it, effluent. And ladies and gentlemen, when the people of Barbados cried out and said, this is not the Barbados that I belong to, this is not the Barbados that I am a citizen of, we had two government ministers who went and jumped in that effluent. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring Mr. Hockey Donovan to this stage to come and say a few words to you because he has a lot to say. Come, Adrian, come on.
Greetings, good members of St. George South, and especially the members of the head table. Man, I finish here tonight, Kerry go want me to go over here, wherever he gonna talk. I got match Kerry, foot for foot. Let me first of all compliment the Honorable Minister Dwight Sunderland, who invited me to come this evening. I'll say a few words, but I say coming. I got an appointment at 7 o'clock in Christchurch South. They will understand that I got other business. That's my minister. I am happy to be in a community center next to the pavilion that was provided by your minister, Dwight Sunderland. I have none at Christchurch South. I have no community center at Christchurch South. None. I gotta go and share with Airborne up in St. Christopher. St. Lawrence School going over 40 children. I can't go in the swamp. I can't go in the gap. But go. But you all are blessed because of this man here. But let me go back a little further here now. I got me dealing with national issues tonight. I want to take you back as what Beth first said. Remember we had the jobby all across Barbados. It's a jobby all across Barbados. I identified 14 locations that the jobby was shipping to come through. 14 on the street of South Coast. And two big belly ministers and a band leader walked down Powerden Beach. The belly saw up. And they said, he telling the truth. The red man and he got telling lies. He telling lies. For 3 months, I took my personal duty to defend my community. 3 months, I had the airways hot with pepper. And let me tell you something further now. As a result, every morning I had a lady who was a consultant, a communication officer in Water Authority, but go in the office and call a meeting to try to retract what I said. They can't retract. If we go by the woman's gas station, I put up a drain, the jobby coming out. They can't say that it lie. I go by another fast food restaurant, I can't call that name. The drain, the jobby coming through there. So they can't say that I telling lies. 14 locations up to now, I'm minister for that administration. I come on national TV or radio and say that I telling lies. Then none. I dare them. But I come here tonight with a different topic. I deal with Jobby now. But if we're talking about Jobby, the honorable leader of the opposition, you ever heard him talk about Jobby on the streets of South Scott? He was the MP. You ever heard Ralph Thorne talk about Jobby in Christchurch South? None. He admitted just last week in the newspaper he was absent from the country for four months. But if you pass through Christchurch South, because for 4 years. But I sent a message last week to Marcia. We told like Marcia every Saturday morning. She got time. George, you want her in a Keep Fit program. Because she's standing in the house and holding shows and talking. But she got to go on the street and jog and walk and get fit. Hypertension, diabetes, I know she got. But let me tell you something. Marcia Weeks want to know, Carrie, who Ralph Thorne is. I can tell Marcia Weeks. I had a video. I went in Scarborough because the mainstream media don't want to hear hockey. They want that certain topics. They're friendly for this, they're friendly for that. So I had to get the cell phone. The boy gave me no fancy nothing. A cell phone. And they run through, but you know, and he do what he had to do. Some people get vexed. Some people tell me doing a good job. But I want you to know, I called Marcia Weeks to tell her come through Scarborough and look at the conditions up there. And people crying out for help. Crying for help. It is the worst road in Christchurch South. I want you to go to Scarborough. It's the worst road. 8 years now. People complaining. And the reason why I want you to go, George, you got people there with wheelchairs and walkers that go get the bus, go get the family, get in there, Scarborough. Let me don't get distracted. Thursday last week, I was sitting in an office where Carrie Simmons was occupied, sitting in the chair, said he's the great leader of the opposition party. And we talking and we chatting, but everything on God earth. Thursday morning, we talk about cricket, basketball, football, politics, every day, blah, 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 blah. And I had to read in the Sunday Sun. Big article. Member of Parliament Christchurch South across the floor. Lord have mercy, my phone, it ringing off, ringing off, ringing off, ringing off, ringing off. I turn it off, went to Dover Beach, get a bread and two and a Coke, and he spent the day on the beach. 142 phone calls, 142. Former MPs, former prime ministers, senators, people from the funeral home. Okay, you got to know what's going on. That you second man. I said, fellas, I don't know. You ain't tell me nothing. Up to this day, you ain't call me. We had an MP in Christchurch South who abandoned the people of Christchurch. The responsibility of an MP is to hold his constituents in confidence, walk with them, talk with them. I just sleep with all of them. You may sleep with one or two. But you hold them in your confidence. We did that for Ralph Thorne for 8 years. But the last 4, something went wrong. The last 4 is missing in action. Missing in action. And what I tell you here tonight, anybody can challenge me. They can't challenge me in the South Coast Service Project. They can't challenge me with Christchurch South. But I want you all to know that Christchurch South will solve its problems. It will solve its problems. We can have a nomination. We can open it for Tom, Dick, and Harry, who want to put the name in the link. We can find an office. We can pay them the BLP colors, and we can operate from there. So the business of Christchurch South is still going on. Let me tell you as of today now, if you pass in Keys Hill, you will see Ralph Thorne pictures still up in Barbados Labour Party colors. When you go in the office, they got 2 rooms in there, full of boxes, Ralph Thorne posters. I know, I had to make some. And they're still there, vote Thorne, vote Thorne. He went in there, he changed the locks. And the poor constitutional assistant, no finally hear from him. She got a decision to make. Whether she going with he or she going somewhere else. Poor girl, I know, she can't work every day. But let me tell you something. We talk about squandermania, corruption, money, misspent taxpayers' money. He now got 2 offices. He's the only MP in Barbados who got 2 offices. He got one in Keys Hill and he got one in Parliament. Fully paid staff. Now tell me what you want in Keys Hill for. It don't got one of the DFP colors yet. And the boy you're going in there. The girl don't, she nails and she flat hair, she lashes and she pretty and but when she getting paid to do carry, just to sit down occupied. And the government of Barbados gonna pay her and pay the rent. And he down in government building with a big office. So we open up there for, I don't know if we can run. I hear you had a meeting up in Christchurch East. I hear the political analyst say the best part to go to St. John. I hear him go down with Grisette, down with David Ishmael, where probably come from, where probably lost twice. He could be like Punker. But I guarantee to y'all tonight, the president won't hear me. Some of them avoid me, but I can't avoid social media. You understand? So the rest of the week, the same I do with the service project, it give you wax for lots. You pull the lion tail, God help you. All hell break loose. I come here tonight because when I walk across Elton, come to talk here tonight, I get people telling me, okay, be careful. They can come here, they can shut you down. All kind of nasty messages. I go on Facebook page, I post my video. You see some personal things, man, going back at my records, you see they got criminal charge. If we get charged for hitting a man, I hit and run. If we, my personal business, they tap me my Facebook page, mother ready to time. I got no wife, no children. I got 2 dogs home. One in Bozo, and one in Chester. Anything that come at me, come and give it to them. I got nothing. I ain't got no chance. The power was going to fear me. Now the crux, I have no rings, no chains, or a piece of watch, and more to count there. Beat up and lick up. So I had no value. So I tell her, don't waste time coming for you, red man. I don't walk the street in peace. So I said the last election, I got some them that attack me. Man, you make me cause the government. You look at all of me. You just call me 61 love. But that is my fault. 2 big belly men and a band leader went from Gordon Beach and said, I tell you lies. They said it was a storage. It was a leaf brown water, Carrie Simmons. They said it was brown water in the road. And when they carry the press there, Jobby, black, white, green. And Jobby's got one color. You understand what I tell you? But they want to silence me. They want me not to talk. But why? The boy ain't paying me to talk. The boy sponsor my campaign. But I can tell the citizens of this country the truth. So if Master Weeks want to know who is Ralph Thorne, I get tell. Bedford, get it? I talking too long? I finishing now. I wrapping up. You could imagine. We put this man in the house for 2 terms. In WhatsApp chats with me. And did not have the decency, the gall to come and tell the members of his branch, I leaving. He ain't got face me. Put it in the WhatsApp chat. Fellas, girls, thank you very much for your service. But he moving on. Tell Oki God, you got any curse there, boy. Tell Oki, Maskeba, I gotta go. And the problem, are you a Democratic choice? You go with Donald Trump, you go with Margaret Thatcher, you go with Affley, you go with Jones Furner Home. Anywhere you want to go. No Democratic choice. But at least have the common decency and tell the people who canvass for you, who knock down doors, who help sponsor your campaign, who cook your food, who walk with you, who beg them to come and vote for you, who clean your office, who put up barrels for your party curtains, who wash your ears. Lord have mercy. You can tell us that you're moving, that deceitfulness. And when you go in the House of Parliament and sit down with Kerry Simmons and Dwight, and you're talking about decency and quoting the Psalms from the Bible, how you convince my people? I got 52-foot soldiers, 52. Got my phone hot. Okay, we can't believe this. But they blaming me. They blaming me because they feel that I know I the right hand man. I was caught. He didn't invite me. He didn't invite me. Tell okay, against somebody else. Suppose I said, well, let me go form an independent party. Let me go do what athletes do. But not a word. So how do you think the people in the Christchurch South feel? Tell me how you think they feel. Some people feel that they're voting no more. They feel they get tricked. He used them. Some feel abandoned. Some want blood. Some say they don't care where you go, they come in the canvas against you. But imagine another man calling today, you hear the voice note again, don't know? The other man? Another man? But I'm going to call his name because he always in court too. So I get to that road. Check the course again on. So I come to tell you all tonight that all will be well in Christchurch South. When Christchurch South get its act together, Christchurch South leads the whole of Christchurch. That's that man there, from Bree St. John. Christchurch South. Because the garden, the bear garden, the market of Christchurch, that is the people's parliament of the whole of Christchurch. East, South, Central, wherever. When you get in there, you debate, you argue, you talk about who sleep with who, but you got to hear that. That's vendors, hawkers. But the people business is discussed in there, in the bear garden. We will get all act together. So let me assure you, okay, Christchurch South will be well. Give us a few weeks, get our act together, put things in place, but just stay back. Stay back and listen. Begin for a ride, begin for an excursion, okay? If Martin Weeks want to know who is the new opposition leader, we will know. I don't have nothing personal against him. I get 5,000 a month. He's not going to get about 17 plus anytime allowance and phone allowance. Okay, anything. I get 5. And the fellas, I know, per retirement, I'm going to go home now, George. 67, the first in May, so I can't see you. Okay? Help me out, George. So I ain't got nothing against the man. I ain't got nothing against the man. Nothing at all. Nothing personal. But I represent people of Christchurch. I put them on my back. You see when I come here today, I gone in a place called Hilton Road. A woman house get blown on by Elsa. Elsa. Up to this year, she ain't gonna help. She had a representation. None. And that lady, on Christmas Day, slept under the bridge in Bridgetown. Homeless. And the woman called me on Christmas Day. Why some of us eating turkey, ham, drinking wine, going to church, dressing in high heel shoes, singing Christmas carols? This old lady, my woman, at 72 years old, was sleeping under the bridge. She was not looked after. Not a phone call to help her. Not a letter to help her. But she called it Aki. I don't like to call old people's name and put them out in the public, but they got to do it sometimes because I ain't telling lies. I ain't telling lies. If you come and say that this boy is homeless, I can put the picture with her permission in the paper. Because they're accusing me and the propaganda and using the body of political mileage. I'm sorry. Gotta get my facts right. But they tell you stories from the street, I can't each location. In a talk. This lady, 72 years old from Hilton Avenue, I guarantee you, the breath of my mouth, that by end of next month, give me mail. I got her in the house. We have all government agencies with her son. Because she will never have an experience of sleeping Christmas Day and need a bridge. And who should she thank for that? Tell me who. And in Parliament tell me about, you care? You care? The woman called me, Donovan, Christmas Day, crying, tears, come all the lady tears. Unbelievable. At 72 years old, Joe Dwight, room minister housing, he nobody situation. We got the house knocked down, house with the bad shambles. Housing corporation got a contractor, we build a foundation. and somebody out of the clear blue sky, but somewhere, turn up, call the police, and stop the contractor from doing work. So right now the foundation there, and the lady left there to go to live on the street since November last year to December. You believe that? She lodging at a house now. Lodging in a house. Tomorrow morning carrying 2 breadfruits and a turkey. And a bottle of one-eye man. Huh? But if she ain't seen for 4 years, she can't see now. But I want to show you, you will get things done. Mr. Springer, the roads that they ain't get do. Atlantic Shore, St. Christopher, Rollins Road, Bournes Land, St. Lawrence Gap, Dover, Rendezvous, Fairway Gardens, Amity Lodge. Sorry, we get to do later on though. But out of all, Scarborough, I want for me, Scarborough. If you want me to come with you, I go walk with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me. Good people at St. George South. And if you want me back, just trickle, and I'll be here. God bless.
Tell me where the action is. The action in St. George South. Thank you, Walkie. You know, tonight I came prepared to speak to you on housing. But we will have some other times. Just to say to you, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and making this meeting what it surely was. Entertaining, facts presented to the public, and indeed, it was worth the time. But I want to end off the meeting with a few comments. My good colleague, Kerry, started when he mentioned my political sojourn, my ministerial sojourn, right where it started, in the Ministry of Business and Commerce. And I recall when I left that ministry, we had started some 4,000 small businesses in this country. 4,000 small businesses. And why I went there, because the said gentleman who just left us, these are persons who had challenges with the Labor Clauses Amendment Bill that seek or sought and is doing, representing small business people in this country and the average man, persons who work in the hotel sector and other places. And this government has been consistent from the 1930s to present, where the focus has been not only to grow the economy, but to represent the masses in this country in all areas. We came to office where the small business sector was a dying head. A dying head. And if you look at the US economy, you understand what prop up that economy, the small business sector. So we were on a mission. The Prime Minister, that the person that just left us is calling so many things. She had the vision to put us in certain areas for the betterment of this country. And not only mission critical, but we were able to execute between 2018 and 2022 what successive governments didn't do in 15 and 10 years, Reggie. And we were able to execute. And after that, a journey to youth and sports. Again, the whole aspect of building communities. What we call the Lighting Project, the Bleachers Project. Those things I worked on and I left for my good friend in St. John to carry on. Building communities, employing small business people again to put up the lights. These are not men with big capital as they're talking about. These are the small businessmen. Cutting the fields, making the hair beautiful. Miss Kennedy, if you came here some 8 years ago, you would not believe what you're seeing now. This is a beautiful place, a beautiful facility that we put our heads and hearts in to make sure that we can sit here in such ambiance and be comfortable. That is what this government did to community centers. When we came to office, when I assumed that ministry, community centers were in shambles. The good minister for tourism down Grisette, he took me down Grisette. And the only thing I didn't do was to cry when I look at the Grisette Resort Center, the pavilion side of it. Go and look at it today. Look at here, Ellerton. The Ellerton Primary School had to take its school sports to St. George Secondary because the Dems left up there in shambles. A little child at school sports literally ran on the bus out there. And we were able to fix the infrastructure. And you know what? The school sports are occurring back here now because we have good facilities. Those are the things that we have done in St. George South. I don't mind. I'm going to look at Greens, go to Draxall. Boys Mill had no lights. The young people now, Boys Mill has a third division football team now because we put lights up there. The guy said some of them working. When they come in late, they come play. Now they're playing there in third division football. Ellerton Football Club in the Premier League doing exceptionally well. Just started Masters football. That's what we are doing here, building a community. We started a cultural group here. Check Greens. Look at Greens, Greens football, Greens cricket. That's what building community is about. Where the young men and women, a netball team is here. The young men and women, they have the opportunity to have an outlet. And they're not just playing, they're playing with the opportunity to become global citizens with what, Kerry? Bajan roots in sports. I went to housing. Be employed for Hurricane Elsa. I started in 2022. Kerry mentioned the mission to build 10,000 houses. It's a mammoth task. But you know what? Up to yesterday, someone called me and said, Dwight, man, you can't build 10,000 houses. You're being set up. You're being this. Someone from St. George. And I said to them, understand, I came out the private sector where we set targets called stretch targets. You set stretch targets. Reggie, you understand this very well. And the Prime Minister has the vision. Because if you say you can build 20 houses, they can fall short of the target. She has to set a realistic vision target based on applications. If we don't achieve it, such is life. But she cannot sit and meander and say, with 29,000 applications at National Housing, look at the deficit already. You have 29,000 applications at National Housing for housing. And we're looking to build 10,000 houses. There's a deficit. There's a big deficit. So if we say we can build 500, oh my God, who are we going to house? Only today. Got a message. Pass me that phone there, Rommel. Pass me that phone there. This lady who went to National Housing some weeks ago, and apparently someone took her house, removed the house and left her. You're going to say it in the media because they understand today, just before I left home, I had the media down there and everything. My good colleague, Edmund Hinkson, was on site. That's how we operate. We go to the scene and we look to comfort. But the reality is, you don't have the housing stock to house everybody that walk through National Housing. And that's why we have to set these targets to build houses in this country. We have to set the targets. Last year, joining with the private sector, we built 727. This year, so far, 304. These 727 include Hurricane Elsa, which made up over 300 of those. But the good news to Barbadians and to the ordinary man and woman who wants to own a house, we have started the process. Soon, in Clifton and St. Philip. I have 12 houses there waiting for persons to enter. Up by you, Starboy. In St. Philip North. In Hackett Hall, another 12. When you go to White Park Road, it's 16. When you journey to St. Lucie, to Coconut Hall, it's another 20. Brighton just started. The infrastructure at Brighton. We are building 42 at Brighton. And the good news for you, the people of St. George South, the cabinet just approved 56 acres. And if you average 10 houses per acre, this for St. George, 560 at a minimum. And Reggie is in the vicinity. Harmony Cottage, and 27 acres going from White Rabbit to St. Jude's on that land, and another 13 acres in that vicinity. And on Drexel Jump, we have another 5 acres. That's just over 50-something houses. The cabinet just approved 140 acres at Vineyard in St. Philip. Up by you again, Mason. Another 140 acres. We just approved in Christchurch. Up by you, Reggie. I don't want to lie. I ain't going to lie. Christchurch. St. Bartholomew. 38. Starting in this month. And another 41 at Corvally. I sign up by you, Reggie. Miss Kennedy vexed me by my good colleague, Wilfred Abrams. Another 41 up there. And if you look at the land that we have acquired or that we have identified, 1,700 acres. Multiply that by 10. 17,000 houses we can build over the period. So when you hear the naysayers talking, we ain't sitting down. And that didn't include the ones that started at Hope Kerry. Kerry is 154, not 162. Down Vesper Gardens that you have. And you have another 36 units at Bullins. And they can go, Rommel, down in Belle Plaine, because of your land slippage, you have a 5 acre that can give you 50 hardwood houses because of the situation. And I can go from parish to parish to parish and tell you how much land we have as a government to build houses in this country. I don't mind the one from up by you, Mason, because let me tell you something about he before he end here now. Because he walking about Barbados Storm, but he build all these houses. This government policy is different to the DLP policy. Democratic Labour Party build houses to rent. We are building houses for what, Kerry? To own. And why are we doing that? You have your children. You need to leave something for your children. Rent money is dead money. Reggie, you're the finance man here. Rent money is dead money. So why put all your money into rent when you can put your money into owning a home? It is going to take a little longer. And I can tell you why. But at the end of the day, this policy of government is totally different to the last government. We are pushing home ownership for ordinary Barbadians. When someone come and get a house, National Housing don't have enough units for you. Under the 20-year transfer program, when we done transfer units, soon to be this year, meaning that we're giving the people them, they will own them. There are only 1,200 units left. With 29,000 applications. You need to know what has happened in this country. The Democratic Labour Party left us in this mess. And we are now coming out of it. We are now coming out of it. That's why we're going from parish to parish to parish to parish and identifying land to build homes so that people can own. And we have a right to own policy as well. Persons can go and have start to rent, have some skin in the game, and after a while they go and say, listen, look, I have enough equity in this house. I need a little mortgage. And what you paid for housing between the 2008 and 2018, let me tell you, man. This is a real housing minister. Then a housing minister that going about the place talking about he built all these houses and I ain't built more houses than he. Even after we don't build them, you know what we have done for the people of this country? Give them opportunity to own a home. He built Valerie High Rise. And let me talk about him now. And the Grotto High Rise, and Kerry started it. It getting late, but I still have to give Donovan a little piece. I have a lot to say. I don't mind him. I can talk about the houses at Pool that the Dems get up there and showing. I can talk about that too. He built Valerie and the Grotto, the Dems. And like Kerry said, they have a board of management at NHC, and I don't intervene in the board. Kerry can tell you, we as cabinet, the SOE, the National Housing Corporation, has a governance structure by a board. Cabinet sets policy. The board governs. So you will not see cabinet come and approve to build houses, Reggie, like Valerie and Grotto, without the board approving it. What do you call that, Reggie? Governance. So when a member for Christchurch South can run over there, he came from among us. I want to see what he can do if he get the chance. You think he can get the chance, Kerry? You don't think he can get that chance, you know? He ain't getting the chance to govern like how Prime Minister Motley is governing. You, the people, will not give him that chance. I know you won't give him that chance. But Valerie, here's the difference between the last government and this government. Valerie was built for $24 million. Valerie High Rise, listen to me carefully. $24 million. We look at the cost of building by square foot cost per square foot. Valerie was built for $651.74 per square foot. $651. $24 million. Remember that. Grotto was built for $27,174,000. $27.174 million. The square foot cost for Grotto was $653.20 per square foot. They're in the $650 per square foot range. Ask me what this government is building at. We are building on the $350 per square foot in this country as I stand to you and tell you. So you could imagine what was happening, how much steel was in there. I ain't know whether 4-inch, quarter-inch, 3/4-inch steel. I ain't know what type of steel was in there. But a lot of steel went in Grotto and Valerie. And I'm an engineer, could talk about steel. S-T-E-E-L. That's an input into the construction of a house. Steel. A lot of steel went in those two units over there. A lot. And that's the difference between this government and the last government. The last government was selling land all up in $20, $24 a square foot. When you look at construction costs, the infrastructure, then the land costs and the house costs added, that's why they went up so high at $351. This government has capped the price of land at $12 per square foot so that the ordinary man can own a home in this country. And we have capped services, the infrastructure and putting in the water and those at $5 a square foot. Is a different policy altogether that is geared towards you, the ordinary man and woman in this country. I just wanted to let you know it's not business as usual in these quarters in the Ministry transporting works. It's not business as usual in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. It's not business as usual in the Ministry of Energy and Business, Ministry of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs. I'm happy to see my parents here. And one thing I vow, I will never leave the two of them at the hospital. Stand let the people see you, because I don't think everybody know the two of you. My mother and father, in their 80s, that is who we are as a people in St. George. Reggie looked after his father till he was how old, Reggie? 93. He's from St. George. Oh, man, he went to Christ Church. He's from St. George. Mr. Griffith, I want to thank you. But I want to beg you for my fair share of workers in your program. When we travel the length and breadth of this constituency, we have some elderly people that need care. I'm coming to you because I represent the people. I didn't just get up and went to the Cabinet of Barbados. The people of St. George sent me to Parliament, and then it was chosen by the Prime Minister. So I have a duty to these people. So I am asking you to give me some more, because I have the second largest constituency in Barbados. And I believe I have more elderly people in St. George South than you have, Rommel, or than Kerry have. So if you give 20 across, it's not the same proportion. And Reggie can tell you, it's not the same proportion. Just like I spoke to the roads, we are wider, more land mass. You have to travel more and longer to get from one point of St. George to the next. So you can't compare St. James Central with St. George South in terms of roads. And I ain't going to allow that to happen. Because at the end of the day, my good friend can get his fair share. Member for St. James Central, Kerry, can get his fair share. But we have to get our fair share too, and that's relative to the size of the constituency and the number of roads. The percentages will even out. If we get 20%, my 20% of the roads will be more roads than him. So don't let's fool ourselves that you hear that we get roads, but I can call the roads now: Ellerton Main Road, Niles Road, Middleton to Jericho. Go into Campaign Castle, you don't have no road. Go into Drexel Woods, you don't have no road. Go into Drexel Jump, you don't have no road. And I can call areas in St. George South where there are no roads. I don't know how the people live. Sanitation trucks can't go into Drexel Woods. The people have to walk with the garbage 400 meters to the end of the road. The truck won't go in there. That's how the people living. Sanitation truck can't go in Campaign Castle on the hill. I drive my car up there because I want to see my people. And I know when they come down the shocks, you know, you're hearing boop, 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 boop. We have our challenges in St. George South, but the government is doing its best. We were dealt a bad hand. I can't blame nobody. We were dealt a bad hand when we came to office with roads. Very bad hand. Very, very bad hand. We were dealt a bad hand with our business sector when we came into office in 2018. Reggie can tell you how many small businesses there were in this country. And you need small businesses to keep your economy buoyant, because if you have a recession again, there's something to keep you. Cash will be circulating and floating. So don't think we are talking about the small business sector because of what? We want our people to put bread on their table if we have another recession. We don't know when the international world will sneeze, Kerry, and we catch a cold. We don't know. Things happen. Ukraine war. The Gaza. All these places, you're having challenges. So I don't want to detain you much longer, but I just wanted to speak to you as Member of Parliament, my people, to recognize that we are not yet completed in this journey. We have a lot of work to do in St. George South. We have started, and I know the team that I represent, that I'm a part of, will do right by you, the people of St. George South, because we have given them once, we have given them twice, and we have given them 3 times, and we intend to give them the 4th time. So, with that, I want to thank you all for coming, and feel free, my office is open nearly every Wednesday. The only time you won't see me Wednesday at my office is if there's a meeting or a funeral. But that office right there at Ellerton Corner is open. I have my PA right here, Mr. Caleb Clark, Stan Caleb, so they know you because you. And look, I have a senior citizen as my PA, see? I looking after the elderly still. And I have a constituent. Huh? You're a senior? Huh? He said, excuse me, senior. And my constituency assistant at the back stand, Sherry, let him see you, who works in the office every day. So I want to thank you all for coming, and God bless you all. I will hand back over to the chairman. Thank you.
This is not business as usual. St. George South, we can continue to do what we know we are good for. This country, this constituency. I want to thank all of the speakers who came here this afternoon and gave us words of inspiration. I want to give special thanks to Senior Minister Simmons, who really let us know about things that we needed to know about. And to my good friend, well, Hockey Donovan, he's gone. I want to thank him for that insightful presentation. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we have detained you till 8:30 in the night. We thank you very much for coming out. We want you to know that we are going to be having our branch meetings on a monthly basis, and we intend to reconnect to anyone that we have not seen, because this branch is working and this executive is about the people with the MP. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out. God bless you. Have a good night.